I've been sleeping at home, but my husband isn't here. I feel like he's lying to me. This all started back when I was pregnant with our first child. My name is Ashley, and I was expecting our first child after 2 years of marriage. I was 9 months pregnant, with only 1 month to go before my due date. While I was excited about the baby, I was also nervous about childbirth and taking care of a child for the first time. I planned to go back to my parents' house for a while so they could help me. I mentioned this to my husband earlier during my pregnancy, but I thought he'd forgotten, so I brought it up again today. While watching TV lazily, my husband said, "Oh, you mentioned going back to your parents' house. If you're going, just go. I won't have any trouble without you here." I was shocked by his dismissive words, but didn't want to argue, so I let it go. I told him, "I'm going back this weekend. I'll give birth next month and will stay at my parents' for 1 or 2 months. So I'll be back in about 3 months. Please make sure the house is ready for the baby." He replied, "All right, I would have done it anyway." Then he added, "Oh, and I can't see you off this weekend because I have to work." I was disappointed. I had hoped he'd come with me to the station, but he didn't seem to care. I knew he was a workaholic, working even on weekends, but I wished he would consider how hard it would be for me to travel while being so pregnant and carrying a lot of luggage. I understood he was busy, but I felt lonely. I didn't want our baby to feel this way too. I also started feeling anxious about whether we could raise the child together. It's not just my baby, it's ours. When did he become so cold? With these thoughts in my mind, I started packing. Since I had time before going to my parents, I decided to send most of my luggage ahead using delivery services. Before my maternity leave started, I had cleaned the house from top to bottom, wanting everything to be ready for the baby. I had even set up the baby bed, and was excited about our life as a family of 3. But my husband kept making a mess in the house. He left half-finished drinks lying around, and didn't clean up the packaging from the things he ordered online. It seemed like he still thought he was living alone. Maybe I cleaned too early, but it hurt to see all my effort go to waste. I realized that since we got married, I had never seen my husband cook or clean. Even though I kept tidying up, the house only got messier, and I started worrying about how things would be when I was away. But with the baby due soon, I focused on my upcoming childbirth. The weekend came quickly, and I left for my parents' home. My husband didn't even see me off, as he went to work. While I relaxed at my parents' house, I stayed in touch with him. We exchanged emails every day, and talked on the phone every few days. But over time, he stopped answering my calls more often. When I asked him why, he'd give vague answers like, "Well, yeah," or "Not really." Jokingly, I asked, "You're not cheating on me, are you?" "I've heard men often cheat when their wives are pregnant." He replied irritably, "No, why would I? It's annoying to be doubted." His irritated tone made me uneasy, so I quickly apologized. I didn't want unnecessary worries while carrying our child. I decided to trust him. A few weeks later, my labor pains started. As I prepared to go to the hospital, I called my husband. Even though I was embarrassed to show my pain, I wanted him to be there for the birth. I said, "The labor has started. It usually takes about half a day for the first baby, so you can still make it. I want you there when our child is born, and you can even cut the umbilical cord." To my surprise, my husband sighed and said, "You want me to take the train right now?" "Sorry, I'm tired, and I have work tomorrow." I was shocked. "You're still talking about work. Our child is being born, and you're prioritizing work." He snapped back, "Shut up, there's no one to replace me at work. If I don't do it, it won't get done. Can't you understand that?" I'm hanging up. I tried to convince him to come, but he cut me off. Tears filled my eyes as I endured the labor pains. Feeling alone, how could my husband be so indifferent to the birth of our child? From the moment a mother finds out she's pregnant, her child becomes her priority, but he seemed to feel nothing. I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy after a full day of labor. He was so tiny and precious. My parents showered him with love, and they taught me how to care for him. After a month, I was already used to bathing and taking care of the baby. My parents grew concerned and asked me, Are you really okay with a husband like that? My parents were worried about me after they went back home. I tried to reassure them, saying I was managing well and recovering faster than expected. I thought I might go back home next week. They reminded me not to push myself and to let them know if anything went wrong. They often say that after childbirth, a woman's body feels like it has been in a car accident. But I felt good thanks to the hormones. I was getting used to taking care of my baby, so I decided to return home earlier than planned. While at my parents' house, I had little contact with my husband. Even when I sent him photos and videos of our son, he didn't react much. I thought maybe a father only feels like one when he interacts with the baby. I tried to stay positive. When my parents dropped me off at home, I didn't tell my husband I was coming back. Since it was his day off, I wondered how he would react to seeing our child for the first time and if he would like our home. After a few hours of driving, we arrived home. I carried my son while my parents handled our luggage. But when I unlocked the door, we were greeted by a dark, silent room. "Hey, no one's here," I said, as I entered the living room. A foul smell hit us. Turning on the light revealed a shocking sight. The room was a mess. Dirty dishes and half-eaten pizza filled the sink. Clothes and trash were everywhere, and mold floated in half-drunk juice. The table was covered in stains, and the bathroom was full of black mold. The toilet was dirty, and in the crib we had prepared for our son, there were cardboard boxes and garbage bags piled up. I had asked my husband to keep things clean for our baby, but it was a disaster. I felt devastated. There was no way we could raise a child in such a filthy home, and I was especially upset about the state of the crib. "This is unacceptable. What's going on?" I exclaimed. My parents were furious and searched for my husband in every room, but he was nowhere to be found. Where could he be on his day off? Maybe he was working another weekend shift, but I was starting to doubt him. His job didn't require weekend work, and he was supposed to follow the calendar. "Let's try calling him," my parents suggested. We couldn't stand in such a messy house any longer. I stepped outside with my confused parents and called my husband, but he didn't answer. On my third attempt, he finally picked up. "Hey, where are you now?" I asked. "I'm sleeping at home," he replied. "Why at home?" I pressed. We had searched the whole house and hadn't seen him. Was he buried under the mess? His tone didn't sound like he had just woken up. Then, I heard a woman's voice in the background. I couldn't hear her clearly, but it was definitely a woman. In that moment, it hit me, he was cheating on me. I couldn't believe he would do this while neglecting our child. The house was a disaster, and he was being unfaithful. I felt furious. A father like this was unnecessary for our son. If he cared so much for this other woman, he could have her. Suddenly, I thought maybe a burglar had broken in. I needed to report this to the police. "Huh? You at your parents' house?" he asked, confused. My anger boiled over. "You're lying about being at home. It's unacceptable to turn the crib into a dump. I'm not coming back. We're getting a divorce," I said quickly before hanging up. I reported a burglary to the police to punish him. I told my parents and son to go back to my parents' house while I waited for my husband in front of our home. The police arrived before he did. I welcomed them inside like guests. When my husband finally showed up, he had a woman with him. His face showed panic. "You weren't supposed to be back yet," he exclaimed. "Who is she?" I asked, glaring at the woman, who stood with her arms crossed. Despite the situation, I felt strangely calm. I asked the woman questions and learned that my husband had been seeing her while hiding our marriage. I was so disgusted by him that I didn't know how to react. "Let me explain," my husband pleaded, trying to grab my shoulder, but I slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me. It's disgusting. The police are checking the room right now. I hope you're embarrassed by the mess you made. I'm leaving. You can explain everything to the police. Goodbye." I headed back to my parents' house, leaving my husband and his mistress stunned. He called numerous times, but I didn't answer. That night, I finally responded. Apparently, he explained the situation to the police and came home looking troubled. The police must have had a hard time dealing with the awful smell and the mess. He brought this on himself. Now, All he had left was his shame and a ruined home. "Come on, I'm sorry, please come back, I've been looking forward to seeing our son," my husband pleaded. If he truly felt sorry, he should have come to my parents' house to apologize in person. Instead, he thought a phone call would fix everything, showing just how terrible he really was. I couldn't imagine a future with him. He had never cared before, and he wasn't there when I gave birth, even after I asked him several times. "Well, I thought you knew I would be there," he said. "I'll clean up the room. I can't do household chores without you. I need you." I could hear him getting more desperate on the other end of the line, but no matter how much he begged, I wasn't changing my mind. "You should have kept that woman. If you can't handle housework, have her do it for you. It was just a fling. You're the only one for me, Ashley," he insisted. "A fling? You saw her every time you said you had to work overtime." "Well, that's a different story," he mumbled, and eventually confessed he had cheated on me with multiple women from high school after reconnecting at a friend's wedding. He was a scumbag. There was no point in continuing the conversation. I felt chills as I listened to him desperately apologize, nearly in tears. "I can't believe this. You disgust me. Were you planning to touch our son with those hands?" "I won't do it again. I'll come pick you up right now. I want to see you and our son. I'll prove my sincerity. Let's go home together." I couldn't believe his audacity. "I can't trust you. There's nothing more to talk about. I'll raise our son on my own. Please forgive me, Ashley." I hung up before he could finish, the call ending with a hollow silence. That was the end of our short marriage. Half a year has passed since then. I decided to start working and relied on my parents for support. Once I save enough money, I plan to leave their house and live on my own with my son. I am currently negotiating the divorce with my husband, mostly to secure alimony. He seems unable to manage household chores and eats out most of the time, leaving his house a mess, but that's no longer my concern. I'm focused on giving my son all the love I can.
The necklace rested in my palm one final time, gold and garnets catching the afternoon light. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory, for the women in our family who know their worth. I traced the delicate chain, remembering how she'd clasped it around my neck on my 16th birthday. Now, at 32, I was about to surrender it to a pawnbroker. I'm Elise, and this wasn't my choice. "Just sign here, Mrs. Mitchell." The pawnbroker slid the paperwork across the counter, his expression carefully neutral. The amount seemed insulting, $300 for something priceless. But Ryan had been clear, either I pawned it, or he would. My phone buzzed. "Ryan again. Did you do it?" "I'm at the shop now." "Good girl. I knew you'd understand." His voice carried that familiar blend of condescension and charm. "This is for our family, honey. I'll get it back once this deal comes through." I wanted to scream that there wouldn't be another deal, that his promises were as worthless as his gambling debts. Instead, I said, "Sophie's waiting for me to pick her up from school. Give Daddy's little princess a kiss for me." The line went dead before I could respond. I signed the paper, my signature trembling slightly. The pawnbroker counted out the bills, and I felt something inside me harden. At home, Sophie colored at the kitchen table while I prepared dinner, her small face scrunched in concentration. "Mommy, where's your pretty necklace?" The knife paused over the carrots. "It needed cleaning, sweetheart. Can I wear it when I'm big like you?" My throat tightened. "We'll see." The front door slammed, and Ryan's footsteps echoed through the house. He appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. "Something smells good." Sophie jumped up. "Daddy!" He scooped her up, and for a moment, I saw the man I'd married, handsome, charming, full of promises. Then his eyes met mine, and I recognized the hollow victory in them. "Go wash up for dinner, princess," he said, setting her down. Once she was gone, he approached me, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. "You did the right thing today." I kept chopping. "Did I?" "Come on, Elise. Don't be like that. This is temporary. Besides, what good was that necklace doing just sitting in your jewelry box? It was mine. The words came out sharper than I intended. His grip tightened. We're married. What's yours is mine, remember? I needed that money for an investment opportunity. You want our family to succeed, don't you? Another gambling debt. Another investment opportunity. Another piece of me chipped away. Of course, I whispered, but something else whispered back, liar. That night, after Sophie was asleep, I sat at my computer, translating a German business contract. Ryan thought I spent my evenings browsing social media or watching Netflix. He had no idea that for the past year, I'd been working as a freelance translator, building my own safety net, one word at a time. My phone lit up with a message from Clara, "Got another project for you. Big money. Interested?" I glanced at our bedroom door, where Ryan's snores drifted through. The man who thought he controlled everything, our money, our lives, our future. The man who didn't know his wife spoke 4 languages or had her own bank account. Yes, I typed back. I'm definitely interested. The necklace was gone, but my grandmother's words remained. For the women in our family who know their worth. I was beginning to understand exactly what that meant. And Ryan? He was about to learn that some debts can never be repaid. The photo album lay open on my lap, a snapshot of Ryan and me on our honeymoon staring back. His arm around my waist, both of us laughing on that Hawaiian beach. 7 years felt like 7 lifetimes ago. Mommy, why are you looking at old pictures? Sophie climbed onto the couch beside me, her small fingers tracing the edges of the photograph. I closed the album quickly. Just remembering things, sweetheart. The front door opened, and Ryan's voice boomed through the house. Family meeting. Living room, now. Sophie bounced off the couch, but I remained seated, my stomach nodding. Family meetings were Ryan's way of announcing his latest schemes. He strode in, still wearing his sales manager badge, face flushed with excitement. I've got amazing news. Remember Tom from accounting? He's got this foolproof system for. Not in front of Sophie, I cut in. His eyes narrowed, but his smile stayed fixed. Princess, why don't you go play in your room for a bit? Mommy and Daddy need to talk. Once Sophie was gone, Ryan pulled out his phone, showing me a series of numbers and charts. Tom's been tracking these patterns for months. If we can just get a stake together. We don't have any money to stake, Ryan. My voice came out steadier than I felt. That's not entirely true, is it? He sat beside me, too close. I saw the credit union statement in your purse. My blood ran cold. The separate account where I'd been storing my translation earnings, he wasn't supposed to know about that. You've been holding out on me, Elise. His tone was light, but his fingers dug into my knee. That's not very wifely of you. That money is for Sophie's future. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Everything I do is for Sophie's future. For our future. Why can't you see that? Like pawning my grandmother's necklace? The words escaped before I could stop them. His grip tightened. I thought we were past that. You know I'll get it back. Like you got back my mother's silver? Or my engagement ring? Ryan stood abruptly. I'm trying to provide for this family. All I need is $5,000. With Tom's system. No. I surprised myself with the firmness in my voice. He turned, and for a moment, I glimpsed something dangerous in his expression. No? I said no, Ryan. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Then his face softened, and he knelt before me, taking my hands in his. Baby, don't you remember how good we used to be? Look at us. He nodded toward the photo album. We can have that again. I just need you to trust me. I looked into his pleading eyes and saw the man I'd fallen in love with, charming, ambitious, full of dreams. But beneath that facade lurked the man who'd sold my grandmother's necklace, who tracked my spending, who made me account for every minute away from home. I have to pick up Sophie's prescription, I said, standing. We can talk about this later. His hand caught my wrist. The credit union closes at 5. We could stop there first. I pulled away. I said later, Ryan. In Sophie's room, I found her arranging her dolls in a circle. Ready to go, sweetie? She looked up, worried. Are you and Daddy fighting? No, we're just talking. I helped her with her shoes, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Hey, want to visit Grandma Martha this weekend? Her face lit up. Can we make cookies? Of course. I grabbed my phone, typing quickly to Clara, need that big project now. Emergency. Her response came immediately, come to the office tomorrow. Got something perfect for you. As we headed to the car, Ryan called from the doorway. Don't forget, Elise. Family meeting isn't over. I buckled Sophie into her car seat, remembering another thing my grandmother used to say, sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is say no. Looking back at our house, at Ryan's silhouette in the doorway, I realized I'd said my first real no today. And somehow, I knew it wouldn't be my last. Clara's office felt like stepping into another world, all clean lines and modern furniture, nothing like my carefully maintained suburban prison. She handed me a steaming espresso and settled behind her desk. It's a contract with a major publishing house, she said. 6 months of work, excellent pay. But there's a catch, they need you in-house 3 days a week. The cup trembled in my hands. Ryan would never. Stop. Clara leaned forward. Stop telling me what Ryan would never allow. This is your career we're talking about. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan, where are you? Sophie's asking for breakfast. Tell him you're at the grocery store, Clara suggested, watching me type. I hate lying. Like he hated lying about gambling away your grandmother's necklace? The truth of it stung. I set down my phone, my decision made. When do they need an answer? A knock interrupted us. Clara's assistant poked her head in. Mrs. Mitchell? There's someone here insisting on seeing you. Says he's your husband. The espresso turned to acid in my stomach. Clara stood. I'll handle this. No. I grabbed my bag. I need to face him. Ryan stood in the reception area, still in his work clothes, his sales manager smile firmly in place. Honey, imagine my surprise when I tracked your phone and found you here instead of the grocery store. The receptionist studiously avoided looking at us. Ryan, I can explain. Oh, I think I understand perfectly. He gestured around the office. This is where you've been hiding your little side business. Making your secret money. His voice stayed pleasant, but his eyes were cold. Get your things. We're leaving. Actually, Clara stepped forward, Elise is in the middle of a meeting. Ryan's smile widened. A family matter takes precedence. Right, honey? That word, honey, dripped with warning. I thought of Sophie, probably still in her pajamas, wondering where I was. Of the credit union account he'd discovered. Of all the careful plans I'd made, unraveling. You should go, I told Clara quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. Call me later. Once we were alone, Ryan's facade cracked. You've been working behind my back this whole time? Making me look like a fool? I was protecting our family. By lying? By sneaking around? He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in. I saw the deposits, Elise. Thousands of dollars. While I've been killing myself at work, you've been here, playing career woman? I tried to pull away. You're hurting me. You know what hurts? Finding out your wife has been living a double life. His grip tightened. That money could have changed everything. Tom's system is another gambling scheme. The words exploded out of me. You need help, Ryan. Professional help. His hand struck my face before I registered him moving. The shock of it silenced us both. Mrs. Mitchell? The receptionist's voice crackled over the intercom. Should I call security? Ryan released me, straightening his tie. That won't be necessary. My wife and I were just leaving. His professional mask slipped back into place. Weren't we, honey? I touched my cheek, feeling the heat of the mark he'd left. In that moment, I saw our future with perfect clarity, the escalating control, the violence barely contained. Sophie growing up thinking this was normal. No, I said quietly. What did you say? I met his gaze. I said no. I'm not leaving with you. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Think very carefully about what you're doing, Elise. Think about Sophie. I am thinking about Sophie. I moved toward the reception desk. That's exactly why I'm done. You walk away now, you'll regret it. His charm vanished completely. I'll make sure of it. I turned to the receptionist. Call security. As the elevator doors closed on Ryan's furious face, my phone buzzed with his final message, You want a war? You got one. I deleted the text and dialed my mother's number. Mom? I need you to pick up Sophie from school today. And I need a place to stay. The war had begun. But this time, I wasn't fighting alone. My mother's kitchen hadn't changed in 20 years. The same yellow curtains, the same cookie jar shaped like a chicken, the same sense of safety. But tonight, something was different. I watched Sophie pushing peas around her plate while Martha and Henry exchanged worried glances. The bruise is darkening, my mother said quietly, touching my cheek. I pulled away. It's nothing. Like the nothing I saw last Christmas? Henry's voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. The fingerprints on your wrist? Before I could respond, my phone lit up. Ryan's mother, Linda. Elise, what's this about security escorting Ryan from your office? Her voice trembled. He's devastated. Says you're trying to ruin him. I stepped onto the back porch, closing the door on Sophie's laughter as Henry performed his famous dinner table magic tricks. Linda, it's complicated. Peter and I raised him better than this. Whatever's happened, surely we can fix it as a family. Family. The word felt hollow now. Did Ryan tell you about the gambling? Silence stretched across the line. Or about pawning my grandmother's necklace? About tracking my phone? About. He needs help, Linda interrupted. And you're his wife. In sickness and in health, remember? What about Sophie? Who helps her when she sees her father? I stopped, hearing the crack in my own voice. He's at our house now, planning to pick up Sophie from school tomorrow. Says it's his right as her father. My blood ran cold. Linda, please. I thought you should know. She hung up. I rushed inside, finding my father already on the phone with his lawyer friend. Martha held Sophie on her lap, reading her a bedtime story as if nothing was wrong. As if her world wasn't about to shatter. The emergency custody order is being filed tonight, Henry said, covering the phone. But Elise, there's something else. The lawyer found multiple credit cards in your name. Accounts you didn't open. The room tilted sideways. I gripped the kitchen counter, remembering all the times Ryan had handled the mail, insisted on managing our finances. Claimed he was protecting me from stress. My phone buzzed again. A text from Clara, check your email now. The message contained screenshots of gambling site transactions, thousands of dollars, all traced to accounts in my name. Below them, loan applications with my forged signature. He's trying to destroy me, I whispered. No, Martha said, her voice steel. He's trying to keep you trapped. There's a difference. Sophie looked up from her book. Mommy, are we having a sleepover at Grandma's? I forced a smile. Yes, sweetheart. A special sleepover. After Sophie was tucked in, I sat at my parents' kitchen table, surrounded by papers, bank statements, credit reports, loan documents. Each page revealed another betrayal, another noose Ryan had quietly placed around my neck. The lawyer says we can prove fraud, Henry said. But it'll take time. Time we don't have. I showed them Linda's text about Ryan's plans for tomorrow. Martha's hand found mine. Then we fight. All of us, together. My phone lit up one final time. Ryan. I know you're at your parents', he wrote. Come home now, and we'll forget this happened. Or tomorrow, I show the police evidence of your gambling addiction and financial fraud. Your choice, honey. I stared at the message, remembering all the choices that had led to this moment. The first time I'd hidden money. The first bruise I'd covered up. The first lie I'd told Sophie about why Daddy was angry. No more choices, I typed back. No more chances. Then I blocked his number and opened my laptop. If Ryan wanted to play this game, he'd learn I wasn't the same woman who'd once believed his promises. I had proof of my translations work, timestamps of my earnings, witnesses to his abuse. But more importantly, I had something he'd never expected, the strength to fight back. Clara, I called, dialing her number. Remember that publishing house job? I'm in. And I need every record you have of our work together. The war had escalated, but this time, I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for Sophie, for the truth, and for every choice Ryan had ever taken from me. The emergency custody hearing loomed tomorrow morning, but first I had to face something harder, explaining to Sophie why we couldn't go home. She sat on my parents' guest bed, clutching her stuffed giraffe, while I packed an overnight bag with shaking hands. But I forgot Sparkles, she said, meaning her favorite bedtime story book. Can't we just go get it? The bruise on my cheek throbbed. Not tonight, sweetie. My phone buzzed. A video message from Ryan. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Sophie's bedroom appeared on screen, Sparkles prominent on her pillow. Ryan's voice, soft and dangerous, everything's waiting for you both. Come home, and this all goes away. Stay away, and I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of mother abandons her family. A text followed, check your email. There they were, screenshots of every translation payment I'd received, doctored to look like gambling transactions. Bank statements altered to show massive withdrawals. A narrative crafted to destroy me. Elise? Clara appeared in the doorway. The lawyer's here. Downstairs, papers covered the dining room table. The lawyer, James, pointed to highlighted sections of documents. He's moved fast. Already filed for full custody, claiming financial misconduct and abandonment. But I have proof. Which will take time to verify. Time he's counting on you not having. Martha brought coffee, her hand steady but her face pale. There must be something we can do. James hesitated. There is, but you won't like it. Before he could continue, Henry burst in. Ryan's outside. I rushed to the window. Ryan's car idled at the curb, headlights off. As I watched, Linda emerged from the passenger side. "I'll call the police," Clara said. "Wait." I grabbed her arm. "Sophie's finally asleep. I don't want her seeing any of this." The doorbell rang. Once. Twice. Then Linda's voice, "Elise, please. Let's talk about this like family." I moved toward the door, but Henry blocked my path. "You don't owe them anything." "But I do." I met his eyes. "I owe Sophie a mother who stands her ground." Linda stood on the porch alone, Ryan's shadowy figure visible in the car behind her. She'd been crying. "He's not himself, Elise. The gambling, the debts, he needs help, not abandonment." "Like the help he gave me when he forged my signature? When he pawned my grandmother's necklace?" She flinched. "He told us about your gambling problem. How you've been stealing from the family." "Stop." My voice cut through the night air. "Look at my face, Linda. Really look." Her eyes fixed on my bruised cheek, then darted away. "He said you fell into his hand? Multiple times?" Movement caught my eye. Ryan stepping out of his car, phone raised. "Recording." "Think about what this will do to Sophie," Linda pressed. "Growing up without a father is better than growing up thinking this is what love looks like." Ryan approached, his sales manager smile firmly in place. "Getting all this on video, honey. Every word. Every refusal to let me see my daughter. The courts will love it." Something snapped inside me. Years of careful compliance, of swallowed words and hidden bruises, crystallized into a single moment of clarity. I pulled out my own phone, starting a recording. "Perfect. Let's give them a show. Tell them about the credit cards you opened in my name. Show them the gambling sites you accessed using my identity. Explain the bruises." His smile faltered. "Or better yet," I continued, "let's talk about Tom's foolproof system. The one that cost me my grandmother's necklace. How's that working out?" Linda's head snapped toward her son. "You said you'd stopped gambling." "She's lying," Ryan snarled, mask slipping. "She's trying to turn everyone against me. Just like always." But Linda had finally seen it, the darkness behind his charm, the violence in his eyes. "Enough," she whispered, backing away from him. "Oh God, Ryan. What have you done?" I closed the door on both of them, legs barely holding me up. Through the window, I watched Linda walk away from her son, phone to her ear, while Ryan stood frozen, his own phone still recording his unraveling. Tomorrow would bring the custody hearing, the legal battles, the long war ahead. But tonight, I'd won something more valuable than revenge. I'd won the truth. The courthouse steps loomed before me like a mountain. Inside, Ryan waited with his lawyer, armed with doctored documents and practice charm. I clutched my own evidence folder, bank statements, translation contracts, medical records, wondering if truth alone would be enough. "Ready?" Clara squeezed my shoulder. Before I could answer, Sophie's teacher called. My hands shook as I answered. "Mrs. Mitchell?" Sophie's father just picked her up. The world tilted sideways. "What?" "He showed the custody paperwork you both signed last night." My legs gave out. Clara caught me, already dialing her phone. "James? Ryan's taken Sophie." "Yes, forged documents. Call the police." But I was already running, my heels clicking against pavement, toward the playground where I knew Ryan took his lunch breaks. Where he'd once pushed Sophie on the swings while I packed picnic lunches and pretended we were happy. He stood by the slide, Sophie perched on his shoulders, her pink backpack still on. Playing the devoted father. "Look who came to watch Mommy lose everything," he called out as I approached. "Didn't expect me to think ahead, did you?" Put her down, Ryan. Or what? His smile was razor sharp. You'll tell everyone what a monster I am? Show them your bruises? Who do you think they'll believe, the gambling addict wife who abandoned her family, or the devoted father trying to protect his daughter? Sophie squirmed. Daddy, you're squeezing too tight. Ryan. Linda's voice cut through the tension. She stood at the park entrance, Peter beside her. Let her go. Stay out of this, Mom. You don't understand. We understand perfectly. Peter's voice carried the weight of decades of disappointment. The police are on their way. It's over. Ryan's facade cracked. You're choosing her side? After everything I've done for this family? What family? I stepped closer. The one you gambled away? The one you terrorized? The one you're traumatizing right now? Sophie started crying. The sound shattered something in Ryan's eyes. I can fix this, he whispered, more to himself than anyone. I just need time. More money. Tom's system is a lie, Linda interrupted. Like everything else you've told us. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Ryan's grip on Sophie tightened. Don't, I pleaded. Please. Not in front of her. For a moment, I saw him wrestle with his choices, the man he pretended to be versus the man he'd become. Then Sophie whimpered again, and something in him broke. He set her down. She ran to me, burying her face in my legs. I did it for us, he said as officers approached. Everything. The gambling, the lies. I just wanted to be enough. You were, I whispered. Until you decided control was more important than love. They led him away in handcuffs, his sales manager's smile finally, completely gone. Linda touched my arm as she passed, tears in her eyes. We'll testify. About everything. In the aftermath, Sophie clung to me while James explained the legal ramifications. Kidnapping charges. Fraud investigations. A restraining order. The custody hearing's been postponed, he said. But with the forged documents and kidnapping attempt, it's basically over. He's done. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, watching Sophie draw pictures with Clara's phone, I felt hollow. This wasn't the victory I'd wanted. This wasn't even revenge anymore. It was just sad. What do we do now? I asked no one in particular. Now? Martha appeared with Sophie's forgotten lunchbox. Now you live. You work. You show Sophie what strength really looks like. My phone buzzed. The publishing house, contract ready for signing. Start Monday? Sophie looked up. Can we go home now? Home. Not the house where Ryan's anger still echoed, but somewhere new. Somewhere ours. Yes, baby. I picked her up, feeling the weight of her trust. We're going home. But first, we had one stop to make. The pawn shop where this all began still held my grandmother's necklace. It was time to reclaim it, not as a symbol of what I'd lost, but of what I'd found, my voice, my strength, my worth. The war was over. The healing could begin. The courtroom felt smaller than I remembered. Ryan sat across the aisle, wearing his best suit and practiced remorse. 3 months of mandatory therapy and anger management had given him a new vocabulary, but his eyes still held that calculating gleam. All rise. As the judge entered, I touched my grandmother's necklace, recently reclaimed. The garnets felt warm against my skin. Your Honor, Ryan's lawyer began, my client has shown remarkable progress. He's completed all court-ordered programs, maintained steady employment, and deeply regrets his actions. Ryan nodded, the perfect picture of rehabilitation. I'd seen this performance before, at our wedding, at Sophie's birth, after every last gambling spree. Mrs. Mitchell. The judge turned to me. You filed an objection to supervised visitation? I stood, feeling the weight of Linda and Peter's presence behind me. Yes, Your Honor. I have new evidence. Ryan's mask slipped for just a moment. I handed the bailiff a folder. Bank statements from accounts I didn't know existed until last week. Loans taken out in my name as recently as 2 days ago. The judge flipped through the documents while Ryan's lawyer whispered urgently to him. These are serious allegations, the judge said. They're lies, Ryan interrupted, standing. She's trying to destroy me. Just like she destroyed our family. Mr. Mitchell, sit down. But Ryan was unraveling, just as I'd known he would. Just as he always did when control slipped away. Tell them, Elise. Tell them how you hid money from me. How you worked behind my back while I tried to provide. Provide what? My voice cut through his tirade. Debt? Fear? Bruises? Order, the judge warned. I pulled out my phone, opening the recording app. Your Honor, I'd like to play something. Ryan's face went white. His voice filled the courtroom. You think you're so clever, hiding money from me? I built this family. I own this family. Without me, you're nothing. That's inadmissible, his lawyer protested. It's from last night, I said quietly. When he came to my parents' house, demanding money for another sure thing from Tom. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Mitchell, is this true? Ryan's charm crumbled. She drove me to it. All these years, pretending to be the perfect wife while secretly working, saving money. Because you gambled away everything else. The words burst from me. The necklace was just the beginning. Tell them about the second mortgage. The credit cards. Sophie's college fund. I would have won it back. Silence fell. Ryan seemed to shrink, realizing what he'd admitted. Your Honor, his lawyer tried, but the judge held up a hand. Mr. Mitchell, this court granted provisional visitation rights based on your apparent rehabilitation. These new allegations, combined with your outburst. Please. Ryan's voice cracked. She's all I have left. They're all I have left. For a moment, I saw him clearly, not as the monster of the past months, or the charming man I'd married, but as someone broken by his own demons. That's not true, I said softly. You have choices, Ryan. You've always had choices. You just made the wrong ones. The judge's ruling came down like a hammer, no visitation. Continued restraining order. Criminal charges for the financial fraud. Outside the courtroom, Linda touched my arm. We've frozen his accounts. He won't be able to take out any more loans. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. I never wanted. We know. Peter's voice was gruff with emotion. We should have seen it sooner. Through the courthouse windows, I watched Ryan being led away by his lawyer. He looked small, defeated. The man who'd once towered over my world reduced to what he truly was, a shadow I'd finally stepped out of. Clara waited by her car. Ready for your first day at the publishing house? I touched my grandmother's necklace one last time. The garnets caught the sun, not like blood now, but like fire. Like strength. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The war was over. Not with a bang or even a whimper, but with the quiet certainty of truth finally spoken aloud. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. The letter arrived on Sophie's 6th birthday. I recognized Ryan's handwriting on the envelope, but it wasn't addressed to me. For Sophie, open when you're older was written in his careful sales manager script. I set it aside, watching Sophie blow out her candles. Clara had transformed her backyard into a fairy garden, complete with twinkling lights and flower crowns. Martha and Henry handed out cake while Linda helped Sophie unwrap presents. "Mommy, look!" Sophie held up a jewelry box from Linda. Inside lay a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny giraffe, like her stuffed animal. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." I caught Linda's eye, saw the mixture of grief and hope there. We'd all lost something in this war, but we'd gained something too. After the party, while Sophie played with her new toys, I found Peter sitting alone on Clara's porch. "Ryan's in a treatment facility in Arizona," he said without preamble. "Real treatment this time. His choice." The night air felt heavy with possibilities and regrets. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he asked me not to." Peter's hands twisted in his lap. "He said you deserve to move forward without his shadow." Through the window, I could see Sophie showing Martha her bracelet, her face glowing with joy. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have believed this piece was possible. My phone buzzed, an email from my publisher. The German novel I'd been translating was headed to print. My name would be on the cover, Elise Mitchell, translator. Not wife, not victim, just me. "There's something else." Peter pulled out an envelope. "From the pawn shop." Inside was a receipt and a note, found this in Ryan's old files. "Thought you should have it. Linda." The receipt was for my grandmother's necklace. Ryan had paid off the loan 2 days before our final confrontation, but never told me. Never used it as leverage. Never mentioned it at all. "He said it was the one thing he did right at the end," Peter said quietly. "Letting you win it back yourself." Sophie's laughter drifted out to the porch, mingling with the evening air. Inside, Clara was showing her how to make shadow puppets on the wall. Martha and Henry sat close together, watching their granddaughter shine. Linda arranged cookies on a plate, humming softly. This was my victory, not the court battles or exposed secrets, but this moment. This peace. This family, rebuilt from the ashes of what was lost. I touched my grandmother's necklace, feeling its familiar weight. "For the women in our family who know their worth," she'd said. Now I understood, worth wasn't something you proved to others. It was something you claimed for yourself. "Mommy!" Sophie called. "Come see what Clara taught me." I stood, leaving Ryan's letter on the porch swing. Maybe someday Sophie would read it, understand the complicated truth of her father. Maybe she'd learn that strength comes in many forms, in standing up, in walking away, in forgiving without forgetting. But tonight, watching her create light and shadow with her small hands, I saw only possibility. She would grow up knowing her worth. Knowing she was loved. Knowing that sometimes the happiest endings come not from revenge, but from the courage to begin again. "Coming, sweetheart," I called, stepping back into the warm light of our new life. Behind me, the letter waited. Ahead, Sophie smiled. And somewhere between past and future, I found the truth my grandmother had tried to teach me: some necklaces are made of gold and garnets. But the strongest chains are the ones we choose to break. I chose Sophie. I chose myself. And in the end, that made all the difference.
The numbers swam before my eyes as I stared at my laptop screen. $3,000 transferred to an account I'd never seen before. Another $4,000 the month before that. The transactions stretched back almost a year, each one a precise knife twist in my gut. I'm Emily, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I knew everything about my husband's finances. We'd built our life on transparency, or so I believed. The shared spreadsheets, the joint accounts, the careful planning, all of it now felt like an elaborate joke at my expense. "Hey, babe, have you seen my charcoal pencils?" Tom's voice floated down from his studio upstairs. The same voice that had promised me honesty 3 years ago at the altar. The same voice that had apparently been lying to me for months. "No," I called back, my own voice steady, despite the tremor in my hands. Tom, could you come down here for a minute? The wooden stairs creaked under his feet. He appeared in the doorway, paint-splattered jeans, and that easy smile I used to find so charming. Now it just made my stomach turn. What's up? He leaned against the doorframe, casual as ever. Want to explain these transfers to an account under your parents' name? The smile flickered, died. His shoulders tensed, and for a moment, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then the mask slipped back into place. Oh, that. Mom and Dad have been having some trouble with their mortgage. I've been helping them out a bit. A bit? I turned the laptop toward him. $7,000 last month alone. Without telling me. They're my parents, Emily. What was I supposed to do, let them lose their house? You were supposed to talk to me. We're supposed to be partners. He ran a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of blue paint near his temple. You wouldn't have understood. You've always been weird about money. Weird about money? The laugh that escaped me didn't sound like my own. Is that what you call wanting to know where our savings are going? They raised me, Emily. They gave me everything. I owe them. And what about what you owe me? What about our future? I scrolled through the transactions again. This is our down payment for a house. Our emergency fund. Our future children's college fund. Their family, he said, as if that explained everything. I'm your family too. Or at least I thought I was. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I caught his mother's name on the screen. Of course. Margaret always had impeccable timing. I need to take this, he said, already turning away. No. I slammed the laptop shut. You need to explain why you've been lying to me for months. I haven't been lying. I just didn't want to worry you. Didn't want to worry me? The words tasted bitter. Or didn't want me to stop you from bankrolling your parents' lifestyle? His face hardened. You don't understand my relationship with them. You're right. I don't understand lying to your spouse. I don't understand stealing our future to fund your parents' present. His phone buzzed again. This time he answered it, turning his back to me. Hi, Mom. Yeah, I'm on my way. Just need to grab those papers. I sat there, watching my husband walk away from our marriage one step at a time, up those creaking stairs to his studio. The truth hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't just fighting Tom's deception. I was fighting against Margaret's influence, against years of manipulation I'd been too blind to see. The laptop screen glowed accusingly in the growing darkness. Somewhere upstairs, Tom was probably already arranging another transfer, another betrayal dressed up as filial duty. Fine. If this was how they wanted to play it, I could play too. But they were about to learn that I played to win. The doorbell chimed just as I finished hiding the bank statements in my home office. Margaret's silhouette loomed through the frosted glass, her shadow stretching across our welcome mat like an omen. Emily, darling. She swept in, designer purse swinging from her arm, bringing with her the cloying scent of expensive perfume. I brought lunch. We need to talk about the garden party next weekend. I forced a smile, knowing exactly what was coming. Every conversation with Margaret was a carefully choreographed dance of criticism wrapped in sugar-coated concern. Actually, I have a work deadline. Nonsense. She was already unpacking containers onto my kitchen counter. Family comes first. That's something modern women seem to forget these days. The way she said modern women made it sound like a disease. I watched her arrange the food with military precision, noting how she'd brought enough for 3, despite knowing Tom was at his studio. Tom tells me you've been asking questions about our financial arrangements. Her voice was casual, but her eyes were sharp as she handed me a plate. I hope you understand how important family support is. Support should go both ways, Margaret. Of course it does, dear. She settled at my kitchen island like she owned it. We've given Tom everything, his education, his artistic opportunities. Now it's natural for him to want to give back. My fork scraped against the plate. With our joint savings? Marriage is about sharing, isn't it? She dabbed her lips with a napkin. Though I suppose that's hard to understand when you're so focused on your career. The word dripped with disdain. I thought about the hidden bank statements, about Tom's betrayal, about all the times Margaret had undermined me while smiling to my face. Actually, I understand sharing perfectly. What I don't understand is secrecy. Oh, Emily. She reached across the counter to pat my hand. I resisted the urge to pull away. You're making such a fuss over nothing. Tom's just being a good son. Surely you don't want to come between him and his family? I am his family. Of course you are, dear. For now. She smiled, showing too many teeth. But blood is thicker than water, isn't it? My phone buzzed, a message from Tom. Mom says you're being difficult about the money. Can we talk later? Of course. She'd probably texted him the moment she sat down. Margaret, I said, setting down my fork. Do you know how much Tom has been transferring to your account? Money is such a vulgar topic of conversation. Not when it's my money being spent without my knowledge. Her smile faltered. Tom knows what he's doing. He doesn't need his wife questioning his decisions about his family. Our family. Our decisions. Our money. You're being very ungrateful, Emily. She stood, gathering her things. After everything we've done for you both. Robert and I have always treated you like a daughter. No, I said quietly. You've treated me like a threat. She paused at the door, her face a perfect mask of hurt confusion. I can see you're upset. We'll discuss this when you're thinking more clearly. The garden party is at 2 on Saturday. Wear something appropriate this time. The door clicked shut behind her, but her presence lingered like a bad smell. My phone buzzed again, Tom asking why I was upsetting his mother. Of course he'd take her side. He always did. I opened my laptop, pulling up our joint account again. A new transaction had posted while Margaret was here, another $2,000, transferred not 30 minutes ago. She must have texted Tom during lunch, and he jumped to do her bidding without a second thought. My hand shook as I took screenshots of everything. 3 years of marriage, and I'd never seen what was right in front of me. I wasn't just fighting financial betrayal, I was fighting a carefully constructed system of control. With Margaret pulling the strings and Tom dancing to her tune. Fine. If they wanted to play family politics, I could play too. But first, I needed to make a call. I picked up my phone and dialed. Samantha? I need your help. It's time to start planning my exit strategy. The gallery opening should have been Tom's moment of triumph. Instead, I stood in the corner, clutching a glass of cheap wine, watching my husband lie through his teeth about our financial situation. The series sold remarkably well, he told a potential buyer, gesturing at the abstract canvases lining the walls. Almost everything's been claimed already. I knew better. I'd seen the real sales figures that morning, exactly 2 pieces sold, and at half the asking price. The rest was fiction, just like our marriage. Emily. Margaret's voice cut through the crowd. She glided toward me in an expensive new dress, Robert trailing behind her like a well-trained shadow. Darling, why are you hiding back here? Come celebrate Tom's success. Success. Right. I took another sip of wine, remembering the credit card statement I'd discovered that morning. $20,000 in new charges, gallery rental, catering, promotional materials. All on our joint card, all without a word to me. The show looks wonderful, I said, the lies tasting bitter on my tongue. Of course it does. We always knew Tom would make it as an artist. Margaret beamed. Though it helped that Robert and I knew the right people to invite tonight. And the new car in your driveway? Did the right people help with that too? Her smile flickered. Robert suddenly found the floor fascinating. Tom insisted, she said. After all we've done to support his career, it's the least he could do. The least he could do. With our money. Our future. I watched Tham across the room, charming another potential buyer with that easy smile I used to trust. Emily. David from work appeared at my elbow, a welcome interruption. I didn't expect to see you here. David. I didn't know you were interested in art. I'm not, usually. But when I saw Tom's name in the paper. He glanced at Margaret, who was watching our interaction with narrowed eyes. Could I borrow you for a minute? There's something you should see. He led me to a quiet corner, pulling out his phone. Remember that audit I mentioned last week? Well, I found something interesting about Thompson Gallery Services. My heart stopped. That was the company Tom had insisted he needed for his art business, the one I'd helped him set up 3 years ago. What about it? The payments don't match the reported income. Not even close. David showed me the screen. Either your husband's the worst accountant in history, or he's hiding money. The pieces clicked into place, the missing funds, the suspicious transfers, Margaret's new car. Emily? Tom's voice behind me. I turned to find him staring at David's phone, his face pale. What are you doing? Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. I held up the phone. Want to explain these numbers? This isn't the time or place. When is the time, Tom? When the account is completely empty? When your parents have bled us dry? Margaret materialized beside him. Emily, you're making a scene. No, Mother, I spat the word like poison. I'm finally seeing the scene you've been directing all along. The gallery had gone quiet. Faces turned toward us, hungry for drama. Everything I've done has been for our family, Tom said, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. No. Everything you've done has been for their family. I was just the convenient bank account. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I set down my wine glass with deliberate care. I understand that while I was working 60-hour weeks to support your art, you were funneling money to your parents. I understand that every time I sacrificed for our future, you were sacrificing our future for them. Emily, please. I'm done. The words came out calm, certain. Done with the lies, done with the manipulation, done with all of it. I turned to David. Thank you for showing me this. I'll need copies for my lawyer. Margaret gasped. Tom's face crumpled. But for the first time in months, I felt light, free, certain. I walked out of the gallery into the cool night air, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage and the sweet satisfaction of finally speaking the truth. My phone buzzed, Samantha, right on cue. Is it done? Yes, I said, smiling into the darkness. It's done. And I'm just getting started. Samantha's kitchen had always been my safe haven, but tonight even the familiar scent of her signature chai couldn't calm my racing thoughts. 3 missed calls from Tom, 6 from Margaret, and 1 very interesting email from David about Thompson Gallery Services financial records. They'd been living like royalty, I said, scrolling through the documentation David had sent. 5-star restaurants, luxury vacations, spa weekends, all while Tom told me we needed to tighten our belts for his art career. Samantha set a steaming mug in front of me. Have you talked to a lawyer yet? Tomorrow morning. I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic. But there's something else. What? The mortgage payments Tom claimed he was making for his parents? Their house was paid off 3 years ago. Before our wedding. Samantha's eyes widened. So where did all that money really go? My phone buzzed again, Tom. I silenced it, but not before seeing his message, please come home. We can fix this. I'll tell you everything. You're not actually considering it, are you? Samantha asked, reading my expression. I don't know what I'm considering anymore. I pushed away from the counter, pacing. 3 years, Sam. 3 years of lies, manipulation, and theft. And you know what the worst part is? I still love him. How pathetic is that? It's not pathetic, it's human. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But love isn't enough when there's no trust. My phone lit up with a text from David, found something else. Can we meet tomorrow after your lawyer appointment? Emily. Samantha's voice was gentle but firm. What's your endgame here? Revenge? Reconciliation? You need to decide. Before I could answer, someone knocked at her front door. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Margaret's perfectly coiffed hair. How did she? Tom must have tracked your phone, Samantha said, already moving to block the door. You don't have to talk to her. But Margaret's voice carried through anyway. Emily, darling, please. This family falling apart is breaking Tom's heart. He hasn't eaten, hasn't slept. I felt the familiar pull of guilt, the urge to smooth things over. Then I remembered the financial records, the lies, the years of manipulation. Emily's not available, Samantha called through the door. And if you don't leave, I'm calling the police. This doesn't concern you, Margaret snapped. Emily, think about what you're throwing away. Think about Tom's career, his future. His future? I moved to the door, anger burning away uncertainty. What about my future? The one you've been systematically stealing? We can explain everything, Margaret's voice softened. Come home. We'll talk it through as a family. Family? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Is that what you call people you exploit? Silence from the other side of the door. Then, Roberts had a heart attack. My hand froze on the doorknob. Samantha grabbed my arm, shaking her head. She's lying, she whispered. It's manipulation. He's asking for you, Margaret continued. The doctors say. I yanked open the door. Margaret stood there, perfectly composed, no signs of distress or hospital visits on her designer outfit. Robert's fine, isn't he? I said quietly. This is just another lie. She straightened, mask slipping. Sometimes we do what's necessary to protect our family. No. You do what's necessary to control your family. There's a difference. You ungrateful. Goodbye, Margaret. I closed the door in her face, turning back to Samantha. I think I just found my endgame. Which is? They wanted to play family? I pulled out my phone, pulling up David's message. Let's see how they handle having their perfect family facade torn apart in public. Every lie, every manipulation, every stolen dollar, all of it exposed. Emily. No more guilt. No more manipulation. I typed a quick response to David, meeting confirmed. Bring everything you've found. Through the window, I watched Margaret retreat to her luxury car, the one my money had helped buy. Soon she'd learn that karma wasn't just a concept. It was coming for all of them, and I was going to be its delivery system. The lawyer's office felt too small, too warm, as David spread the documents across the mahogany desk. Each paper was another nail in the coffin of my marriage, another revelation that made my hands shake. Tax fraud, David said quietly. Not just misappropriation of funds. They've been using your joint business to launder money for years. My wedding ring caught the fluorescent light as I reached for the papers. 3 years of marriage reduced to spreadsheets and bank statements. How much? Close to $500,000. He hesitated. Emily, this isn't just about divorce anymore. This is criminal. My phone vibrated, another message from Tom, please come home. Mom's hysterical. Dad's threatening to disown me. We can fix this. I switched it off. What are my options? I asked the lawyer, Catherine Mills, who'd been silently taking notes. We can file criminal charges, she said, but that means public record. Everything comes out, the fraud, the manipulation, all of it. Including my name on those business documents, I added. I signed them too. Under false pretenses, David interjected. We have proof Tom misrepresented. A knock at the door interrupted him. Catherine's assistant stepped in, looking uncomfortable. I'm sorry, but there's a Margaret Thompson insisting on speaking with Emily. She says it's about Robert's health. That trick again? I started to refuse, but David held up his hand. Let her in. You need to hear this. Margaret swept in like she owned the place, but I caught the cracks in her facade, smudged mascara, trembling hands. Emily, you have to stop this madness. Her voice cracked. Robert. The stress. He's had a real heart attack this time. Like the fake one you invented yesterday? This is different. He's in intensive care. The doctor said. Mrs. Thompson, Catherine interrupted, are you aware that threatening or attempting to manipulate my client could be considered harassment? Margaret's mask slipped completely. You think you're so clever, don't you? Digging up our private affairs, threatening our family's reputation? What about Tom's career? His future? What about my future? I stood, anger finally overwhelming caution. The one you stole? We gave you everything. A place in our family, connections. You gave me lies. I picked up one of the documents. Like this vacation to the Maldives last spring? When Tom told me he was at an art retreat? She paled. That's not. Were these spa weekends? The shopping sprees? All while I worked overtime to support your son's struggling artist lifestyle? Emily, David warned softly, but I was beyond stopping. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady, despite my racing heart. You're going to sign a confession admitting to the fraud. All of you, Robert, and Tom. You're going to repay every penny you stole from me. Or I go public with everything. You wouldn't dare. It would destroy Tom. Like you destroyed my trust? My marriage? My financial security? She reached for her phone. I'm calling Tom. Go ahead. I spread the documents across the desk. Tell him to bring his checkbook. And a pen. Margaret's hand froze over her phone. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. You're bluffing, she whispered. I pulled out my own phone, pulling up the local newspaper's contact information. Want to bet your country club membership on that? Your social standing? Your freedom? The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Then Margaret did something I'd never seen before. She crumpled into a chair and began to cry. What do you want? She asked between sobs. I looked at Catherine, who nodded slightly. Everything, I said. And you have 24 hours to decide. As Margaret fled the office, David touched my arm. Are you sure about this? I stared at the documents scattered across the desk, each one a reminder of 3 years of lies. No, I admitted. But I'm sure about one thing, they're about to learn that Karma takes Visa, MasterCard, and cashier's checks. The game was changing. And this time I was writing the rules. The moving truck idled in our driveway as I unlocked the front door for the last time. 24 hours had passed since my ultimatum, and the Thompson family's response had been silence. Pure, calculated silence. Until now. Tom sat at our kitchen table, head in his hands. Margaret stood by the window, arms crossed, while Robert, apparently recovered from his heart attack, leaned against the counter. You're really doing this? Tom's voice cracked. I set my box of packing supplies on the counter. The movers will be in soon. You might want to clear out. Emily. Robert stepped forward, his usual passivity replaced with something harder. We've spoken to our lawyers. They say you're equally liable for any financial irregularities. Mutual assured destruction? I laughed. That's your play? We're trying to protect our family, Margaret snapped. Your family? I pulled out my phone, showing them the screen. Like these photos of your Maldives vacation? The one where Tom was supposedly at an art retreat? The society pages would love these. Tom's head snapped up. You wouldn't. Try me. The movers appeared in the doorway. I gestured them toward the stairs, but Margaret blocked their path. This is still our house. Actually, I cut in, it's not. Check the deed. I bought it with my income while Tom was struggling to launch his career. You vindictive little. Mom. Tom stood suddenly. Can you give us a minute? Margaret opened her mouth to protest, but Robert touched her arm. They left, Margaret's heels clicking against the hardwood like tiny hammers. I loved you, Tom said quietly once we were alone. I still love you. Love doesn't empty bank accounts. I can explain everything. Save it. I turned to the movers. Start upstairs. Master bedroom. Tom grabbed my arm as I tried to pass. Please. Just listen. Mom and Dad. They sacrificed everything for my art. When they needed help, they manipulated you into stealing from your wife. I jerked away. And you let them. We can fix this. Pay you back. With what money? The gallery's failing, Tom. Your parents are broke. And you. I gestured around our house, at all the things we'd built together. You never really wanted this, did you? A real marriage, a partnership. You wanted a bank account with a pulse. His face crumpled. That's not fair. Neither is fraud. The movers thundered down the stairs with our bedroom furniture, my furniture now. Tom watched them carry out pieces of our life together, each item a silent accusation. If you do this, he said, voice low, if you expose everything, you'll destroy us all. Including yourself. I pulled out an envelope. Then signed the confession. Admit what you and your parents did. Pay me back, and I'll keep quiet. You know we can't afford. Sell the vacation house. Margaret's jewelry. Your father's collector cars. I stepped closer. Or I press charges, and everyone learns how the respected Thompson family has been operating. Emily. Your choice, Tom. But choose fast. My lawyer's waiting. He stared at the envelope, hands shaking. Then Margaret burst back in. Don't you dare sign anything. She snatched the envelope. We'll fight this. You'll what? I turned to the movers. Take everything except his art supplies. Those were bought with stolen money anyway. Margaret ripped the envelope to shreds. You think you've won? We'll destroy you. Every connection, every opportunity. Mom, stop. No. She needs to learn. I walked out while they argued, leaving them to their mutual destruction. Outside, David waited in his car, ready to follow the moving truck to my new place. You okay? He asked as I slid into the passenger seat. I watched Tom and Margaret's silhouettes through the window, still fighting, still trapped in their toxic dance. 3 years of my life gone, my financial security in shambles, my reputation potentially ruined. No, I admitted. But I will be. I pulled out my phone and opened the email I drafted to the local newspaper. My finger hovered over send as David started the car. Sometimes karma needed a little push. The newspaper headline hit like a bomb. Local artist family accused of financial fraud. My finger trembled over the screen as social media notifications flooded my phone. The Thompson family's carefully constructed facade was crumbling, one share at a time. I hadn't pressed send on that email. Someone else had beaten me to it. My new apartment's doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Tom, looking haunted. Margaret stood behind him, her perfect makeup unable to hide her rage. I opened the door, but blocked the entrance. How did you find me? David, Tom said quietly. He thought we should talk. Of course. David's misplaced sense of fairness. I'd have to deal with that betrayal later. There's nothing to discuss. You destroyed us, Margaret hissed. Are you happy now? I didn't publish that story. Liar. She tried to push past me, but I held my ground. Robert did. The words hung in the air like smoke. Tom's face went slack with shock. Margaret grabbed the doorframe for support. What? Check your phone, I said. He's probably confessed to everything by now. Tom pulled out his phone, hands shaking. His father's message was there, just as I'd predicted. I'd received my own copy an hour ago. Dad would never. He stopped reading, color draining from his face. Turns out your father has a conscience, I said. Unlike some people. Margaret snatched the phone, her carefully manicured nails clicking against the screen. As she read, her mask finally cracked completely. That weak-willed fool, she spat. After everything I'd done for this family. Everything you've done? Tom's voice cracked. Mom, you're the one who told me to hide the transfers from Emily. You're the one who. I was protecting you. Your art, your future. My future? He laughed, bitter and hollow. Look around, Mom. My marriage is over. My reputation is ruined. The gallery's finished. What future? I watched them unravel, feeling strangely empty. This was my revenge, served not by my hand but by karma itself. We can fix this, Margaret insisted, turning to me. Emily, if you just tell everyone it was a misunderstanding. Like you told everyone Robert's heart attack was real? She flinched. Or how about the art sales you faked? The tax records you doctored? I pulled out my phone. Should I keep going? Please, Tom whispered. Emily, I'm sorry. I'll do anything. It's too late. I stepped back into my apartment. Robert's confession is just the beginning. The police have everything. Margaret's face contorted. You vindictive little. Mom, stop. Tom grabbed her arm. Haven't you done enough? For the first time, I saw Tom stand up to his mother. Too little, too late. I loved you, I told him quietly. But love without trust is just another form of manipulation. You taught me that. Emily. Goodbye, Tom. I started to close the door, then paused. Oh, and Margaret? The country club called. They're revoking your membership. Apparently, fraud doesn't fit their image. Her scream of rage was cut off by the closing door. I leaned against it, listening to their arguing voices fade down the hallway. My phone buzzed, a message from Robert, it's done. I'm sorry for everything. The police have my full statement. Another buzz, David, I'm sorry I told them where to find you. But you needed this closure. And finally, Samantha, you okay? I looked around my new apartment, at the boxes still waiting to be unpacked. At the fresh start I'd bought with 3 years of pain and betrayal. No, I typed back. But I will be. I walked to the window, watching Tom help his sobbing mother into their car, no, her car, bought with my money. Soon they'd learn just how expensive karma could be. The Thompson family was about to discover that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't what you do to others, it's letting them destroy themselves while you walk away free. The last box from my old life arrived on my doorstep, unexpected, unasked for. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, lay my wedding album and a letter in Tom's messy scrawl. I set the album aside without opening it and unfolded the letter. The words blurred, then sharpened. Emily. Dad took a plea deal. Mom's facing trial. The gallery's finished. You won. Or maybe we all lost. I don't know anymore. My phone buzzed, Samantha, sending me a link to another news article. Margaret Thompson, society maven, charged with financial fraud. The mighty had fallen, their empire of lies, crumbling to dust. I crumpled Tom's letter, but couldn't quite throw it away. Not yet. The doorbell rang. David stood there, holding coffee and looking uncertain. Thought you might want company, he said, then noticed the box. Oh. Bad timing? Perfect timing, actually. I grabbed my coat. Let's go somewhere else. We walked to the park where Tom had proposed, though I didn't tell David that. The autumn air carried the scent of endings and beginnings. Robert called me, I said, watching a family play frisbee nearby. He's testifying against Margaret. Says Tom finally moved out of their house. Are you okay? I considered the question, really considered it. I thought revenge would feel better than this. But I didn't actually do anything. They destroyed themselves. I just stopped protecting them from the consequences. A jogger passed, leaves crunching under her feet. In another life, that could have been me, running from my problems instead of facing them. The detective handling their case called, I continued. Asked if I wanted to press additional charges. And? I said no. I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth spread through my chest. Enough people have been burned by this fire. David nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. Sometimes the best revenge was simply walking away, head held high. My phone buzzed again, an email from my lawyer. The divorce was final. No contests, no delays. Tom had signed everything without argument. You know what the strangest part is? I said, closing the email. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just free. A child's laughter carried across the park, pure and unburdened. I thought about the wedding album sitting in that box, about the young woman who'd smiled so hopefully at the camera, believing in forever. What will you do now? David asked. Live, I said simply. On my own terms. We walked back to my apartment in comfortable silence. The box still sat by the door, Tom's crumpled letter beside it. Want help getting rid of that? David gestured at the box. No. I picked up the letter, smoothing it out. One line caught my eye. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to be the man you deserved. At least he'd finally told the truth about something. I struck a match, watching the flame dance. The letter caught quickly, curling into ash in my kitchen sink. The wedding album would go to Goodwill, let someone else's memories live in those pages. Emily? David hesitated at the door. There's an art exhibition next weekend. Nothing fancy, just local artists. If you'd like to. Not yet, I said gently. But ask me again sometime. After he left, I stood at my window, watching the city lights blink on one by one. Somewhere out there, the Thompsons were facing their own darkness, their carefully constructed world falling apart. But that wasn't my story anymore. I opened my laptop, pulling up the novel I'd started writing, not about revenge or betrayal, but about redemption. About a woman who learned that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in refusing to let them destroy you. The cursor blinked, waiting. Outside, a siren wailed, then faded. The city moved on, indifferent to personal dramas and private wars. I began to type.
The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a loaded gun. No return address, just my name in precise block letters that seemed to dare me to look inside. I'd found it wedged in our front door when I got home from my shift at First National, and something about its weight made my stomach clench. I'm Hannah, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I understood my life. Funny how paper can weigh so much when it's carrying secrets. My fingers trembled as I spread the photographs across the granite countertop. Greg, my husband, standing in front of Davidson's farm supply with two men in expensive suits. Greg again, this time at the copper kettle, leaning in close to the same men. His face animated in that way it gets when he's pitching something to the city council. The timestamp showed Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. He was supposed to be at a budget meeting. The last photo knocked the air from my lungs. Greg shaking hands with Robert Chin, the developer who'd been trying to buy up farmland on the outskirts of town. My father's land. Hey, honey. Something smells amazing. Greg's voice boomed from the foyer, followed by the thud of his briefcase hitting the floor. I swept the photos into a drawer, my heart hammering against my ribs. Just heating up some leftovers, I called back, proud of how steady my voice sounded. He appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. That same blue tie he'd worn to Dad's last birthday dinner. You wouldn't believe the day I've had. The zoning commission is being impossible about the new development proposal. Which proposal would that be? I kept my eyes on the pasta sauce I was stirring, watching the red bubbles pop and burst like tiny accusations. Oh, you know, the usual stuff. Budget allocations, property assessments. He came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. His cologne, usually comforting, made me want to gag. Nothing you'd find interesting. I turned in his arms, studied his face. The same face I'd woken up to for 12 years. Dad's oncologist called today. Greg's expression shifted, concern replacing his easy smile. How's he doing? The treatment's not working as well as they hoped. They want to try something more aggressive. I watched his eyes, searching for any flicker of calculation. It's expensive. We'll figure something out, he said, but his arms had loosened their hold. Your dad's tough. He'll pull through. The phone rang, saving me from having to respond. Greg answered it in his study, his voice a low murmur through the wall. I pulled the photos back out, staring at the evidence of his betrayal until my vision blurred. My sister Megan's words from last week echoed in my head, something's off with Greg lately. The way he changed the subject when I mentioned Dad's farm. I defended him then. Told her she was imagining things, that Greg would never do anything to hurt our family. Now, holding proof of his lies in my trembling hands, I wondered what else I'd been blind to. The study door opened, and I shoved the photos away again. Greg emerged, his face carefully neutral. That was Robert Chin, he said, watching me. He wants to meet tomorrow to discuss some community development initiatives. Robert Chin, I repeated, tasting bile. The developer. You've heard of him. Here and there. I turned back to the stove, killing the heat under the sauce that had started to burn. Will you be meeting him at the copper kettle again? The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. When I looked back, Greg's smile had hardened into something I didn't recognize. How long have you known? He asked quietly. Long enough. I gripped the counter's edge, anchoring myself. Tell me you're not trying to sell my father's land while he's fighting for his life. Greg's laugh was hollow. It's complicated, Hannah. There are things you don't understand. Then help me understand, I said, but I already knew. The careful man I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who could look me in the eye and plot against my family. Sometimes, he said, reaching for me, we have to make hard choices for the greater good. I stepped back, out of his reach. The distance between us felt like miles, and I knew with sudden clarity that it would only grow wider. Dad's oxygen tank wheezed in the guest room as I helped him unpack. His hands shook while folding his flannel shirts, but his eyes were sharp as ever when they met mine. You didn't have to do this, honey. I can manage at the farm. The lie sat between us like a third person in the room. We both knew he couldn't manage alone anymore, not with the cancer eating away at his strength. I tucked his medications into the bedside drawer, arranging them by schedule. The doctor said you need someone nearby. Besides, Greg and I want you here. Another lie. Greg had barely concealed his irritation when I'd announced Dad was moving in. But he couldn't exactly refuse without looking like the villain he was becoming. Speaking of Greg, Dad said, lowering himself onto the bed, he seems different lately. Distracted. I busied myself with hanging his coat in the closet. He's got a lot on his plate with work. Hannah. Just my name, but loaded with meaning. Dad had always been able to see through my deflections. What's really going on? The doorbell saved me from answering. Megan's voice carried up the stairs, followed by Eli's excited chatter. I squeezed Dad's shoulder. That'll be dinner. You ready to head down? Greg was already playing host in the dining room, pouring wine and laying on the charm. Sam, great to see you settled in, he said, helping Dad into his chair. We'll have you feeling better in no time. Eli bounced around the table, showing off his new soccer medal. Aunt Hannah, did you see? I scored the winning goal. That's amazing, buddy. I ruffled his hair, grateful for his innocent enthusiasm. Maybe you can teach your Uncle Greg some moves. He could use the exercise. Greg's laugh was pitch perfect, but his eyes flashed a warning. Always keeping me humble, aren't you, dear? Megan caught the undertone, her gaze darting between us. The food smells wonderful, Hannah. Need help bringing anything out? In the kitchen, she cornered me by the oven. Okay, spill. What's with the Arctic chill between you two? I pulled out the casserole, buying time. Did you know Robert Chen's been sniffing around Dad's property again? The developer. I thought Dad told him to take a hike months ago. He did. I lowered my voice. But apparently, Greg's been meeting with him behind our backs. Megan's sharp intake of breath matched the sick feeling in my gut. Are you sure? I have photos. The casserole dish clattered against the counter harder than intended. And when I confronted him, he fed me some line about the greater good. That snake. Megan's face flushed with anger. Does Dad know? Not yet. He's got enough to deal with. Back at the table, Greg was in full politician mode, regaling everyone with stories from City Hall. The development committee's really excited about some upcoming projects. Could bring a lot of jobs to the area. What kind of projects? Dad asked, pushing his food around his plate. Oh, various things. Retail spaces, maybe some mixed-use developments. Greg's smile never wavered. Actually, Sam, I'd love to get your thoughts on some proposals. Your experience with land management could be invaluable. I gripped my fork so hard my knuckles went white. The audacity of him, trying to manipulate Dad while he was vulnerable. Uncle Greg, Eli piped up, is it true you're gonna build stores where Grandpa's farm is? The silence that followed was deafening. Greg's facade cracked for just a moment before he recovered. Where'd you hear that, sport? Tommy at school said his dad works for some guy named Shin, and they're gonna build a mall or something. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Is that true, Greg? It's just preliminary discussions, Greg said smoothly. Nothing's decided. But Sam, you have to think about the future. Medical bills aren't getting any cheaper, and the farm's just sitting there. Just sitting there. Dad's voice was quiet but steel-edged. That land's been in our family for 3 generations. My father's buried there. And we respect that, Greg said, reaching for his wine glass. But sometimes progress requires difficult choices. I stood up so abruptly my chair scraped against the floor. Progress? Is that what you call going behind our backs to sell out family? Mommy, Eli whispered, why is everyone mad? Megan pulled him close. Come on, sweetie. Let's go get dessert ready. As they left, Dad pushed himself up from the table, his breathing labored. I think I need to lie down. I moved to help him, but Greg got there first. Let me assist you, Sam. Don't touch me. Dad's words cut through the room like a blade. I may be dying, Greg, but I'm not dead yet. And that land isn't yours to sell. The bank statement spread across my desk told a story I wasn't prepared for. Greg's separate account, the one he thought I didn't know about, was hemorrhaging money. Large withdrawals, suspicious transfers, and a pattern of deposits from shell companies I'd never heard of. Working at First National had its advantages. Like knowing which tellers would look the other way when you accessed your husband's private records. My phone buzzed. Megan. You need to get to the hospital. Now. The drive was a blur of red lights and horn blasts. I found Dad in the emergency room, oxygen mask clouding with each labored breath. Megan paced nearby, her face drawn. What happened? Collapsed during his morning walk. Greg was supposed to be watching him. Her voice cracked. He said he had an emergency meeting. The same excuse he'd used yesterday and the day before. I touched Dad's hand, his skin paper thin under my fingers. Where is Greg now? That's the thing. Megan lowered her voice. I drove by the copper kettle on my way here. His car was in the lot. With Chen's. Something snapped inside me. Stay with Dad. The restaurant was half empty when I walked in. Greg sat in a corner booth with Chen and two other men, papers spread between them. Their heads bent together like conspirators, which I suppose they were. Greg saw me first. The color drained from his face. Hannah. What are you? Dad's in the hospital. My voice carried across the quiet restaurant. But don't let that interrupt your meeting. Chen gathered the papers quickly, stuffing them into his briefcase. Mrs. Mitchell, we were just discussing the greater good. The words tasted like poison. Planning how to carve up my family's legacy while my father fights for his life. Greg stood, reaching for my arm. Let's discuss this at home. I jerked away. I saw your accounts, Greg. The withdrawals, the shell companies. What have you done? The other diners were staring now. Greg's political smile slipped into something uglier. You had no right to look at my private accounts. You had no right to sell my father's land behind our backs. I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. But that's not all you've been hiding, is it? Want to explain these transfers to offshore accounts? Chen and his associates were already heading for the door. Greg's facade cracked completely. You don't understand. The campaign funds. There were expectations. Promises I had to keep. Campaign funds. The pieces clicked together. You've been embezzling money. Keep your voice down, he hissed. I can fix this. The development deal with Chin would cover everything. No one would ever know. Except my father would lose everything he's worked for. Your father is dying, Hannah. His words hit like physical blows. That land is worth nothing as a farm, but developed. It could save us all. Pay for his treatments, secure our future. Our future. I laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. There is no our anymore, Greg. You killed at the moment you decided to sacrifice my family to cover up your crimes. His expression shifted, something desperate creeping in. Think about what you're doing. If this gets out, I'll lose everything. My career, my freedom. Like I'm losing my father while you play deals with developers? I pulled out another phone, his backup that he thought I didn't know about, and held it up. Everything's here, isn't it? All your messages with Chen, the financial records, the bribes. Greg lunged for the phone. I stepped back, watching his careful mask shatter completely. You want revenge? He snarled. Fine. But remember, if I go down, you'll have nothing. No money for your father's treatments, no house, no future. Is that what you want? The restaurant had emptied around us, leaving only the weight of his threat hanging in the air. I thought of Dad in that hospital bed, of the family farm where we'd scattered Mom's ashes, of all the promises Greg had made and broken. "What I want," I said quietly, "is for you to feel exactly what my father feels right now. To watch everything you love slip away while you're powerless to stop it." I turned and walked out, Greg's pleas following me into the parking lot. My phone buzzed, Megan again. But for the first time since this nightmare began, my hands weren't shaking. I knew exactly what I had to do. The hospital bills arrived on the same morning Dad's latest test results came back. I spread them across my sister's kitchen table, the numbers blurring together like abstract art. Each page represented another piece of my father's life we were trying to buy back. "We could sell the truck," Megan suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. We both knew it wouldn't be enough. Eli wandered in, still in his pajamas despite the late morning. "Is Grandpa coming home soon? Come here, buddy." I pulled him close, breathing in the simple comfort of his presence. "Grandpa needs to stay at the hospital a little longer. The doctors are helping him get stronger. Like Superman." His eyes brightened with hope. "Something like that." The lie tasted bitter, but I forced a smile. Megan's phone buzzed. Her expression darkened as she read the message. "Greg's calling an emergency city council meeting today." My stomach clenched. "About what?" "The development proposal. He's pushing for a vote on rezoning Dad's land." The room tilted sideways. Greg knew Dad was too weak to attend, knew I'd be tied up at the hospital. He was making his move while we were vulnerable. I have to stop him. I stood up, gathering my things. "Hannah, wait." Megan grabbed my arm. "There's more. I heard from Sarah at the bank. Greg's been asking about taking out a second mortgage on your house." The betrayal hit like a physical blow. That house was my inheritance from Mom, the only thing I'd brought into our marriage that was truly mine. "He can't," I whispered. "Not without my signature." Megan's silence said everything. "And Hannah." Eli's voice was small. "Are you and Uncle Greg getting divorced?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Greg, "We need to talk. Meet me at the house." I found him in his home office, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. He looked older somehow, haunted. "The council meeting," I said. "Call it off." "I can't." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "The developers have a timeline. If we don't move now, they'll what? Find another piece of land to destroy. Another family to tear apart. Is that what you think I'm doing?" He finally looked up. "Everything I've done has been for us. For your father. Don't you dare." My voice shook. "Don't use Dad as an excuse for your crimes." "Then what's your solution?" He stood, anger breaking through his politician's mask. "How are we supposed to pay for his treatments? The experimental drugs he needs aren't covered by insurance. The farm barely breaks even. So you forge my signature. Try to steal my house." He flinched. "You weren't supposed to know about that." Like I wasn't supposed to know about the embezzlement. The bribes. I did what I had to do. His voice dropped to a whisper. "And now you have a choice to make." He slid a document across the desk. A contract, already filled out with Dad's name. "Sign it," Greg said. "Let Chen develop the land. The money would cover all of your father's treatments, with enough left over to set him up comfortably for whatever time he has left." My hand hovered over the paper. One signature and Dad could have the best care money could buy. One betrayal to prevent another. And if I don't? Greg's expression hardened. Then I'll have no choice but to protect myself. Those financial records you found. They could implicate you too. A bank teller accessing private accounts, stealing confidential information. The threat hung between us like a blade. You'd destroy me to save yourself. I'd do whatever it takes to survive. His smile was a ghost of the one I'd fallen in love with. Just like you're doing now. I picked up the pen, felt its weight in my hand. Thought of Dad in his hospital bed, of Eli's innocent questions, of Mom's house that had sheltered generations of our family. The pen snapped in my grip, ink staining my fingers like blood. You're right about one thing, I said, turning toward the door. I will do whatever it takes. But not to survive. To make you pay. His laughter followed me out, tinged with desperation. You've got nothing, Hannah. No proof that would stand up in court. I touched the recorder in my pocket, still running. We'll see about that. The small rental house smelled of dust and forgotten summers. I helped Dad settle into the worn armchair while Megan brought in the last of his medical equipment. His oxygen tank wheezed in rhythm with the ancient ceiling fan. You shouldn't have to do this, Dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. Moving out of your own home. It's not my home anymore. I arranged his medications on the kitchen counter, organizing them by time and dosage. Not since Greg tried to steal it. My phone buzzed again, the 15th call from Greg today. I silenced it without looking. There's something you need to see. Dad pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, hands trembling. Found it while packing. Inside was a letter, Mom's handwriting flowing across the yellowed paper. The date showed 2 weeks before she died. I never gave it to you, Dad said. Maybe I should have. The words blurred as I read, My dearest Hannah, I know you'll face choices that tear at your heart. Remember that revenge is a poison that kills the soul before it reaches its target. Your strength isn't in your ability to hurt others, but in your capacity to protect what matters most. A knock at the door interrupted. Through the window, I saw Greg's car parked across the street. Don't answer it, Megan said, but I was already moving. Greg stood on the porch, his politician's smile cracking at the edges. You're making a mistake, Hannah. The council voted. The development is happening whether you like it or not. Get off my property. Your property. He laughed, but there was something desperate in it. You can't afford this place without me. How long before Dad's medical bills eat through your savings? A month? 2. I recorded everything, Greg. The threats, the admission about the embezzlement. Inadmissible. His smile widened. Recorded without consent. Besides, who do you think they'll believe? The respected councilman or the unstable wife who accessed private bank records illegally? Behind me, Dad's coughing echoed through the house. Greg's eyes flickered toward the sound. He doesn't have much time left, Greg said softly. Let me help. One signature and all this goes away. Dad gets the best care money can buy. Like you helped Mom. The words escaped before I could stop them. Greg stepped back as if struck. What are you talking about? The experimental treatment she wanted. My voice shook. The one you said we couldn't afford. But you had money then too, didn't you? Hidden away for your precious political career. That's not. I found the accounts, Greg. The dates match. You let her die to protect your ambitions. The mask slipped completely. Everything I did was for us. For our future. There is no us anymore. I pulled Mom's letter from my pocket. Only the truth. And tomorrow, everyone's going to know it. What truth? His eyes narrowed. Check your email. I sent copies of everything to every news outlet in the state. Bank records, recordings, proof of the bribes, everything. The color drained from his face. You'll destroy yourself too. Maybe. I thought of Mom's words about poison and protection. But sometimes the price is worth paying. He reached for me, but Megan appeared in the doorway. Leave, Greg. Before I call the police. As he turned to go, Dad's voice carried from inside. Greg. We all froze. Dad stood in the hallway, leaning heavily on his walker. I wanted to tell you something. Dad's eyes were cleared despite his labored breathing. The land isn't just dirt and trees. It's where Sarah and I built our life. Where we scattered her ashes. You tried to sell not just property, but memories. Family. Love. He straightened slightly. That's why you were never worthy of my daughter. Greg's facade crumbled completely. Without another word, he walked to his car and drove away. Inside, I found a second page to Mom's letter, one I hadn't noticed before. The last lines caught in my throat. Whatever you choose, remember this, true strength lies not in standing alone, but in standing together. Your father and sister will need you, just as you'll need them. Let love guide your choices, not hate. It's the only way to keep your soul intact while fighting for what's right. I looked at Dad and Megan, both watching me with concern and love. Tomorrow would bring its own battles, but tonight, in this dusty little house, I was exactly where I needed to be. The news vans circled our rental house like vultures. Through the window, I watched reporters clutching microphones in the rain, their faces hungry for scandal. Dad's medical equipment hummed in the background, marking time like a metronome. My phone lit up with another text from Megan, turn on channel 4. Now. Greg stood at a podium outside City Hall, his face drawn but composed. Behind him, Robert Chin smiled like a satisfied cat. My wife's accusations are unfortunate, Greg said, his voice steady. But they stem from a place of deep personal pain. Her father's illness, combined with her recent emotional instability. The remote cracked in my grip. Furthermore, he continued. The alleged financial improprieties were actually attempts to secure additional funding for local healthcare initiatives, including cancer treatment programs. Everything I've done has been for this community. The camera panned to show supporters holding signs, "We stand with Greg" and "Progress over persecution." My phone buzzed again, the bank this time. My accounts were frozen pending investigation. Greg's preemptive strike had worked perfectly. Hannah. Dad's voice was weaker today. Someone's at the door. Through the peephole, I saw Sarah Chin, Robert's wife. She clutched an envelope, glancing nervously over her shoulder. I know what they did, she said when I opened the door. To your mother. To others. The envelope contained medical records. Names, dates, treatments denied while money disappeared into offshore accounts. My mother's name jumped out from the list, along with dozens of others. Robert's been working with Greg for years, Sarah whispered. Using medical funding for their developments. I wanted to come forward before, but... She touched her wedding ring. I was a coward. A commotion erupted outside. Greg's car pulled up, surrounded by reporters. He stepped out, straightening his tie, that familiar political smile in place. I've come to speak with my wife, he announced to the cameras. To help her understand the truth. Sarah slipped away as Greg approached. He looked smaller somehow, despite his confident stride. You're making this worse for yourself, he said when I opened the door. The bank records. Inadmissible. The recordings. Illegal. But this vendetta against me. That's slander. I know about Mom's treatment, I said. About all of them. His smile flickered. What are you talking about? I held up Sarah's envelope. The medical records. The diverted funds. Everything. For the first time, real fear crossed his face. Where did you get those? Does it matter? It's over, Greg. All of it. He stepped closer, voice dropping. Think about what you're doing. One phone call and I can make sure your father gets into that experimental treatment program. The one that could actually save him. The temptation hit like a physical blow. Behind me, Dad's oxygen tank wheezed. You're still trying to manipulate me, I said. Even now. I'm trying to save you from yourself. His eyes softened. Remember when we first met? You said you loved how I could always find a solution. Let me find one now. For a moment, I saw him as he used to be, the man who brought me coffee in bed, who held my hand at Mom's funeral, who promised to protect our family. Then Dad started coughing, the sound wet and painful, and the illusion shattered. The only solution, I said, is the truth. The truth. He laughed bitterly. The truth is, you'll lose everything. Your job, your reputation, maybe even your freedom. And for what? Revenge? Justice? There's no difference. He reached for the envelope. Not in the real world. I stepped back into the house. Maybe that's why you never understood me. Last chance, Hannah. His voice hardened. Don't make me destroy you. Through the window, I could see the reporters watching, cameras ready. Beyond them, storm clouds gathered over the distant farmland, Mom's final resting place, Dad's legacy, our family's heart. You already tried, I said, and closed the door on his face, on our marriage, on any last hope of an easy resolution. Inside, Dad's breathing had grown more labored. The medical records felt heavy in my hands, weighted with choices and consequences I couldn't yet see. Tomorrow would bring either justice or ruin. Tonight, watching Greg retreat to his car through the rain-streaked window, I wasn't sure I could tell the difference anymore. The state attorney's office smelled of leather and power. I sat across from Greg and his lawyer, Sarah Chen's documents spread between us like a minefield. Outside, reporters pressed against the windows, their cameras flashing like lightning. These records were obtained illegally, Greg's lawyer said, but his voice lacked conviction. Ask Sarah Chen about that. I met Greg's eyes. Your partner's wife has quite a conscience. Greg's carefully constructed facade cracked. Robert's wife. She gave you these. She's not the only one tired of watching people die while you play politics. The attorney cleared his throat. Mrs. Mitchell, given the circumstances, we're prepared to offer a deal. Your husband will support your father's medical treatment, fully funded, in exchange for no deals. I pushed a USB drive across the table. This contains everything. The diverted medical funds, the offshore accounts, the bribes. I'm not here to negotiate. Greg leaned forward. Think about what you're doing. If this goes public, everyone loses. The development project dies. The medical center closes. Is that what you want? I want the truth. The truth. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. The truth is I was trying to save us all. The town's dying, Hannah. The medical center's bleeding money. The development project would have funded everything, new treatments, research programs, jobs. By stealing from dying patients. From my mother. His face softened. Your mother. That was different. I made a mistake. I was young, scared of failing. The campaign needed money. She needed treatment. My voice cracked. She begged you to help her try the experimental program. I know. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. That's why I've been working so hard to make it right. The new medical center would have state-of-the-art facilities. No one would ever have to leave town for treatment again. The door opened. Megan stepped in, followed by a man in an FBI jacket. Greg's lawyer stood. This meeting is over. Actually, the FBI agent said, it's just beginning. Mrs. Chen has been very cooperative. Greg's composure shattered. Sarah's working with the FBI, along with 3 members of the development committee. The agent placed a warrant on the table. They've provided quite a paper trail. You don't understand, Greg pleaded, looking at me. Everything I did was for us. For this town. For your father. My father taught me that integrity isn't negotiable. I stood, legs shaking. You could have come clean years ago. Could have told me the truth about Mom. Instead, you built lies upon lies until you couldn't tell the difference anymore. And you're so pure. His voice hardened. Using illegal recordings. Stealing bank records. You became exactly what you hated. The truth of his words stung, but I thought of Mom's letter. About poison and protection. Maybe you're right. I pulled out one final document. That's why I'm resigning from the bank. Turning myself in for accessing those records. The difference is, I'm choosing the truth. You're still running from it. Greg stared at me, really seeing me perhaps for the first time. You'd sacrifice everything. Your career. Your freedom. Some things are worth the price. The FBI agent stepped forward. Mr. Mitchell, we need you to come with us. As they led him away, Greg stopped at the door. I did love you, Hannah. Maybe not enough to change, but I did. I know. The admission hurt more than I expected. That's what makes it tragic. Through the window, I watched them escort him to a waiting car. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Tomorrow's headlines would destroy the man I'd once loved, the life we'd built, the future we'd planned. Megan touched my arm. You okay? No. I thought of Dad waiting at home, of Mom's grave on the farmland. Of all the families who'd lost loved ones while Greg played God with their lives. But I will be. The medical center. The FBI agent says they'll freeze the development plans, investigate everything. Maybe something good can still come from this mess. Outside, storm clouds finally broke, rain washing away the last traces of the life I'd thought I knew. It felt, somehow, like cleansing. Spring wildflowers dotted the farmland, pushing through soil that had witnessed generations of my family's story. I stood at Mom's favorite spot, watching Eli plant sunflower seeds along the fence line. These'll grow taller than me, he said, patting the earth with careful hands. Just like the ones your grandma used to plant. I touched the weathered fence post, remembering Mom's garden parties. The way she'd made this land feel alive with possibility. The sound of tires on gravel announced Megan's arrival. She carried a stack of papers, her expression cautiously hopeful. The board approved it. The land trust paperwork just needs your signature. The documents outlined our vision, a community wellness center built around the existing farmland. Gardens where patients could heal, spaces for experimental treatments, rooms where families could stay close to their loved ones during treatment. Everything Greg had promised, but built on truth instead of lies. Have you read the letter? Megan asked quietly. I touched the envelope in my pocket, Greg's final communication before starting his sentence. I'd carried it for days, unsure whether to open it. Not yet. Maybe it's time. Dad's wheelchair creaked as he joined us, his breathing stronger since starting the new treatment program. The FBI's investigation had uncovered funds that were redistributed to the victims of Greg's schemes. A small justice, but meaningful. Your mother would be proud, Dad said, watching Eli work. Not of the revenge, maybe. But of what you're building from it. I unfolded Greg's letter, his familiar handwriting somehow both strange and intimate. Hannah. I finally understand what you meant about truth being worth the price. In here, I've had time to count the cost of my choices. Not just in years served, but in trust destroyed and lives damaged. I was so focused on building a legacy that I forgot what really matters. I've arranged for my remaining assets to be transferred to the Wellness Center project. Anonymously, through a trust. Not for redemption, I know that's not possible, but because it's right. Because somewhere between ambition and fear, I lost sight of why I wanted to help people in the first place. You were stronger than me. You chose truth over safety, justice over comfort. I'm sorry I couldn't be the man you deserved. Greg. A breeze stirred the wildflowers, carrying the scent of fresh earth and new growth. Eli ran over, hands dirty from planting. Look what I found. He held up a small metal box, rusted but intact. Inside was Mom's old garden journal, its pages filled with her dreams for the land. She wanted to build something here too, Dad said, touching the weathered cover. A place of healing. We will. I tucked Greg's letter away, letting it become part of the past. But we'll do it right. The sound of construction equipment echoed from the far field where the Wellness Center's foundation was being laid. Sarah Chen had joined the project's board, turning her husband's testimony into something positive. Sometimes redemption comes from unexpected places. And Hannah. Eli pointed to the horizon where storm clouds gathered. Should we plant more seeds before the rain? I looked at my family, Dad in his wheelchair but fighting, Megan with her quiet strength. Eli with his innocent wisdom, and felt something settle in my heart. The desire for revenge had brought me here, but love would build what came next. Yes, I said, taking his small hand in mine. Let's plant something new. The first drops of rain began to fall, not washing away the past but nourishing the future. I thought of Mom's letter about poison and protection, about Greg's final attempt at redemption, about all the ways justice and mercy tangle together. The land would tell a new story now. Not just of what was lost or taken, but of what could grow from broken ground. Sometimes the hardest truth is that healing doesn't look like we expect it to. Thunder rolled across the fields as we worked, planting seeds in the gathering storm. Each one a promise, a possibility, a choice to build rather than destroy. That's the thing about revenge, it shows you what you're willing to sacrifice. But love shows you what you're willing to build from the ashes it leaves behind.
The phone rings at 2:17 in the afternoon, and just like that, my world splits in half. Before and after. Living and dying. Truth and lies. Vanessa, it's your mother. You need to come now. Uncle Robert's voice cracks, something I've never heard in my 65 years of knowing him. She's had a heart attack. They're working on her at St. Mary's. My fingers go numb. The coffee mug slips, shatters against the kitchen tile. Dark liquid spreads like blood across the white floor. Tom! I call out, my voice echoing through our too-big house. Tom, I need you. He appears in the doorway of his home office, wireless earbuds in place, annoyance etched across his face. I'm on a call. My mother had a heart attack. I need you to drive me to St. Mary's. He sighs, that familiar dismissive exhale that's been grinding away at my soul for 23 years. I've got the Peterson merger meeting in 30 minutes. Can't you take an Uber? The coffee spreads, seeping into the grout lines between tiles. I watch it create patterns, little rivers of brown that remind me of the veins on my mother's hands. My mother is dying. I say, each word precise and sharp. And you're worried about a meeting? Don't be dramatic, Vanessa. Your mother's always been healthy as a horse. He taps his earbuds. I need to get back to this call. Something snaps inside me. Maybe it's the last thread of pretense, or perhaps it's just my patience. You know what? Never mind. I'll drive myself. That's my girl, he says, already turning away. Always independent. My hands shake as I grab my keys. The coffee remains unpainted across the floor. A modern art installation of my shattered afternoon. I leave it there, a testament to this moment. The drive to St. Mary's is a blur of red lights and horn blasts. My phone buzzes repeatedly. Aunt Margaret, Emily, Uncle Robert. I can't answer. Can't split my focus between driving and the reality waiting at the hospital. I find a spot in the emergency parking, crooked across 2 spaces. Let them tow it. Let the whole world burn down. My mother needs me. The emergency room smells like industrial cleaner and fear. Uncle Robert stands by the intake desk, his normally pristine suit wrinkled, his silver hair disheveled. Where is she? I ask. He pulls me into a hug that feels like surrender. They're still working on her. Margaret's back there. They only allowed 1 person. Tom? He asks, looking over my shoulder. Meeting, I say. The word tastes like acid. Uncle Robert's jaw tightens. He's never liked Tom, though he's been too polite to say it outright. Of course he is. A doctor appears, still wearing surgical gloves. There's blood on his scrubs. My mother's blood. The world tilts sideways. Mrs. Mitchell? He asks. I nod, unable to speak. I'm sorry. We did everything we could. The words wash over me like ice water. Uncle Robert's arm tightens around my shoulders, holding me upright as my knees buckle. Would you like to see her? The doctor asks gently. I shake my head. Not yet. I want to remember her alive, laughing in her garden last Sunday, telling me about her new rose bushes, telling me I deserved better, telling me it wasn't too late to start over. My phone buzzes again. Tom's face appears on the screen, probably calling to ask about dinner plans or complain about his meeting. I silence it without answering. Emily's on her way, Uncle Robert says softly. She was in class when Margaret reached her. I nod, still staring at my silent phone. 23 years of marriage, and my husband couldn't be bothered to drive me to my mother's deathbed. The thought settles in my chest like a stone, heavy with certainty. Mom was right. It's not too late to start over. Emily bursts through the emergency room doors like a whirlwind, her dark hair wild, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She looks so much like me at her age that for a moment I forget to breathe. Mom! She crashes into me, and I hold her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. I got here as fast as I could. Is Grandma? I shake my head against her shoulder. She stiffens, then pulls back to look at me. Where's Dad? The question hangs between us like a razor wire. Before I can answer, Aunt Margaret emerges from the corridor, her face drawn and pale. She takes one look at us and opens her arms. Emily hesitates, glancing at me again. He had a meeting, I say quietly. The Peterson merger. Emily's expression shifts, confusion, then understanding, then something harder. She's seen this before countless times. The missed birthdays, the empty chair at her graduation, the perpetual excuse of work that always seems to matter more than family. Of course he did, she mutters, turning to accept Aunt Margaret's embrace. Uncle Robert's hand finds my shoulder. The doctor needs some paperwork filled out, he says gently. Why don't you let me handle that? I nod, grateful. Forms and signatures feel impossible right now, like trying to solve complex equations while drowning. My phone buzzes again. Tom's message lights up the screen. How's your mother? Meeting ran long. Ordering takeout for dinner. Emily reads the message over my shoulder and makes a sound. Half laugh, half sob. Seriously? Grandma just died and he's asking about dinner. Emily. I start, but she cuts me off. No, Mom. Don't defend him. Not this time. She runs her fingers through her tangled hair. A gesture so like her father it makes my chest ache. You know what? I'm done pretending everything's okay. Grandma always said. She stops abruptly, tears welling in her eyes. What did she say? I ask, though I think I already know. She said you deserved better. That we both did. Emily wipes her eyes roughly. She was right. Aunt Margaret moves closer, her voice low and steady. Helen worried about you, Vanessa. She saw what this marriage was doing to you. Even if you couldn't. Or wouldn't, Uncle Robert adds quietly. The truth of their words settles over me like ash. 23 years of making excuses, of smoothing things over, of pretending Tom's indifference was just his way. 23 years of watching my mother's concerned looks, of fielding her gentle suggestions about therapy or separation. My phone buzzes again. Another message from Tom. Should I wait dinner for you? Emily makes that sound again, but this time it's pure disgust. She grabs my phone and types rapidly before I can stop her. Emily, don't. Too late, she says, handing the phone back. Someone needed to tell him. I read her response. Mom's mother just died. Don't wait up. Better yet, don't wait at all. The 3 dots appear immediately, showing Tom is typing. Then they disappear. Reappear. Disappear again. Finally, a single message. We'll discuss this attitude when you get home. Discuss what? Emily's voice rises. The fact that his wife's mother died and he couldn't be bothered to show up? That he's more concerned about dinner than supporting his family. Lower your voice, sweetheart, Aunt Margaret says, but there's approval in her eyes. A nurse approaches, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Mitchell? We need to discuss arrangements. The word arrangements hits me like a physical blow. My mother is dead, and my husband is worried about takeout. The absurdity of it all threatens to overwhelm me. I'll help, Emily says firmly, taking my arm. We don't need him for this. As we follow the nurse, I realize Emily's right. We don't need him. Maybe we never did. My mother's last words to me echo in my mind. It's never too late to start over, sweetheart. Never too late to demand more. I squeeze Emily's hand, feeling stronger than I have in years. Tom wants to discuss attitudes? Fine. We'll discuss plenty when I get home. Starting with divorce papers. The funeral home smells like artificial flowers and secrets. I sit at the mahogany desk, staring at Mom's life insurance documents, while the funeral director drones on about payment options. Something's wrong with the numbers, but my grief-addled brain can't quite grasp what. Mrs. Mitchell, he says, sliding another form across the desk. We'll need the initial payment today. The policy information your husband provided seems to have some discrepancies. Discrepancies. The word feels wrong in my mouth. The policy appears to have lapsed 3 months ago. The room tilts slightly. That's impossible. My mother never missed a payment in her life. He clears his throat. According to our records, the automatic payments stopped when the account was closed. What account? More paper shuffling. The joint account she shared with your husband. He was helping manage her finances, correct? The pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. Tom had offered to help with Mom's finances last year, claiming his financial expertise would be beneficial. She'd agreed reluctantly, after he'd worn her down with his usual mix of charm and condescension. My hands shake as I pull out my phone, opening the banking app. The joint account I share with Tom shows a balance far lower than it should be. I start scrolling through transactions and my stomach drops. Casino withdrawals, online gambling sites, wire transfers to accounts I don't recognize. The funeral director's voice seems to come from very far away. Mrs. Mitchell? Are you all right? I need a moment, I manage to say, standing up so quickly my chair scrapes against the floor. I need to make a call. In the hallway, I dial Uncle Robert's number. He answers on the first ring. The life insurance lapsed, I say without preamble. Tom's been stealing money. Not just from me, from Mom. A long pause. Come to my office. Now. 20 minutes later, I sit across from my uncle's desk while he pulls up financial records on his computer. As Mom's attorney, he has access to everything. Jesus Christ, he mutters, clicking through screens. Vanessa, this goes deeper than you think. The house equity line, your retirement accounts, Emily's college fund. Each word hits like a physical blow. How much? Initial estimate? Close to 700,000. The room spins. That's not possible. Someone would have noticed. The bank. Tom works in finance. He knows how to hide things. Uncle Robert's voice hardens. He's been bleeding you dry for years. My phone buzzes. Tom's face appears on the screen along with the text. Where are you? We need to discuss funeral arrangements. A laugh bubbles up in my throat, harsh, ugly. Discuss funeral arrangements? He stole my mother's life insurance money, and he wants to discuss arrangements. Don't respond, Uncle Robert says sharply. We need to handle this carefully. I'm calling Sarah-chan. Your criminal lawyer friend? He nods grimly. We're going to need her. But first we need to secure what's left. Do you have any accounts he can't access? Before I can answer, another text from Tom appears. Found the coffee mess in the kitchen. Had Maria clean it up. You're welcome. Don't forget we have dinner with the Petersons tonight. The casual entitlement of it, the assumption that I'll play my usual role, smile through dinner while he networks, something snaps inside me. I want him destroyed. I say, surprised by how calm my voice sounds. Not just divorced. Destroyed. Uncle Robert studies me for a long moment. He will be. But we have to be smart about this. He doesn't know that we know. So what do I do? Go home. Act normal. Have dinner with the Petersons. He starts typing on his computer. Let him think he's still in control while we gather evidence. Can you do that? I think of Mom, of all the times she told me I was stronger than I knew. Of Emily's college fund, emptied by her father's addiction. Of 23 years of subtle manipulation and calculated neglect. Yes, I say, standing up. I can do that. I learned from the best, after all. What do you mean? I smooth my skirt, check my makeup in my phone's reflection. Tom taught me everything I know about pretending. The Peterson dinner feels like a performance in hell. I sit at our oversized dining table, watching Tom charm our guests while my skin crawls with every practiced laugh, every rehearsed story. He's wearing his favorite blue tie, the one I gave him for our 20th anniversary, paid for with money he probably gambled away. Vanessa's taking some time off, Tom explains smoothly, reaching for the wine bottle. Family matters. Sandra Peterson's face crumples with manufactured sympathy. Oh yes, we heard about your mother. Such a shock. I grip my fork tighter, imagining driving it through Tom's hand as he pours more wine. Yes, I manage. Quite unexpected. Speaking of family, Tom continues, Emily's considering law school. Following in your footsteps, John. John Peterson beams. Smart girl. The firm's always looking for fresh talent. My phone vibrates in my lap. A text from Sarah-chan, Uncle Robert's lawyer friend. Documents ready. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Excuse me, I murmur, standing. I need to check on dessert. In the kitchen, I lean against the counter, breathing deeply. The catering company's tiramisu sits perfectly plated on the silver tray. Another performance piece in this elaborate charade. Need help? I startle. Sandra Peterson stands in the doorway, her expression oddly intent. I'm fine, I say automatically. She steps closer, voice dropping. Are you? Because I recognize that look during dinner. I used to wear it myself. I don't. My first husband was a gambler too. She smooths her expensive blouse. Lost everything before I caught on. The signs are always there, aren't they? We just choose not to see them. The tiramisu blurs as tears threaten. How did you? No. She smiles sadly. The way Tom keeps checking his phone under the table. The slight tremor in his hands. The desperate edge to his charm. She pulls something from her pocket. A business card. When you're ready, call her. Best divorce attorney in the state. Before I can respond, Tom's voice booms from the dining room. Ladies, we're dying of dessert deprivation out here. Sandra squeezes my arm and helps me lift the tray. As we return, I catch Tom sending another furtive text, his jaw tight with tension. Later, after the Petersons leave, Tom loosens his tie. Good night, all things considered. John seemed impressed about Emily's law school plans. Emily isn't going to law school. He blinks. What? She's never wanted to be a lawyer. She's applying to art therapy programs. I start gathering plates. But you'd know that if you ever actually listen to her. Don't start, Vanessa. Not tonight. He reaches for his phone again. Expecting an important call? His head snaps up. Something flickers across his face. Fear? Work never stops, you know that. Right. Work. I set the plates down carefully. Like the work you did managing my mother's finances? The color drains from his face. What are you talking about? The life insurance policy lapsed, Tom. Funny timing, considering all those casino withdrawals from her account. He recovers quickly, switching to his patronizing smile. You're upset about your mother. You're not thinking clearly. Why don't you take one of your pills and... I'm thinking very clearly. I pull out my phone, show him the banking screenshots. $700,000, Tom. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? His facade cracks. I can explain. The market's been volatile. I had to make some temporary adjustments. Save it for your lawyer. He grabs my arm as I turn away. Don't threaten me, Vanessa. You have no idea what you're doing. Who do you think pays for this house? Your clothes? Your entire lifestyle. I look at his hand on my arm, then into his eyes. You're right. I don't know what I'm doing. I smile, channeling his own practice charm. Yet, the threat in that single word hits him. His grip loosens. Get some sleep, Tom, I say softly. You look tired. Must be all that work you're doing. I leave him standing there, his phone buzzing again in his pocket. Upstairs, I send a quick text to Sarah Chun. Make it 8 a.m. I'm ready. Sarah Chun's office feels like a war room. Bank statements and legal documents cover every surface, each page revealing another layer of Tom's deception. I stare at a credit card statement, charges from a jewelry store I've never heard of, dated last Valentine's Day. He's been busy, Sarah says, highlighting another suspicious transaction. And not just with gambling. My throat tightens. There's someone else? Several, potentially. But that's not our primary concern. She slides a document across the desk. This is. The paper blurs before my eyes. Foreclosure notice. Our house, my house. The one I'd spent 23 years turning into a home. He took out a second mortgage without your knowledge, Sarah explains. Technically illegal, but he forged your signature quite convincingly. A knock interrupts us. Uncle Robert enters, his face grim. The SEC filing just came through. Tom's company is under investigation for financial irregularities. How bad? I ask. Criminal charges bad. He sits heavily. The Peterson merger was a smokescreen. The whole company's about to implode. My phone buzzes, Emily. Mom, where are you? Dad's acting weird. He's packing up his office stuff. I'll call you back, sweetheart. I look at Sarah. How much time do we have? Hours, maybe. Once the SEC announcement goes public. He'll run, Uncle Robert finishes, with whatever money he can grab. Sarah starts gathering papers. We need to freeze accounts immediately. File emergency motions. Another text from Emily. Mom, seriously. He's asking about your mother's safety deposit box. The blood drains from my face. The jewelry. Mom's jewelry. What jewelry? Sarah asks sharply. My mother's collection. Family heirlooms. She kept them in a safety deposit box at First National. My hands shake as I type a response to Emily. He's trying to access it? He can't, Uncle Robert says. Helen changed the access permissions last month. Only you can open it now. I remember Mom's last visit to the bank, how insistent she was about updating the paperwork. She knew. Somehow she knew. My phone rings, Tom's face appearing on screen. I answer on speaker. Darling. His voice oozes charm. I need a favor. Your mother's safety deposit box. I need to inventory the contents for the estate. Could you meet me at the bank? Sarah shakes her head violently. I'm rather busy today, I say carefully. Perhaps tomorrow? It really needs to be now. For legal purposes. A pause. Unless you don't trust me? The facade cracks slightly on those last words. A hint of desperation bleeding through. Of course I trust you, I lie smoothly. But I'm having lunch with Emily. Why don't you join us? We can go to the bank afterward. Emily's not answering my calls. That's odd. She's sitting right here. I watch Sarah frantically typing on her laptop. Tom? Is everything okay at work? The line goes dead. He's panicking, Uncle Robert says quietly. That makes him dangerous. Sarah looks up from her laptop. Account freeze orders are processing. I've notified the SEC about potential flight risk. But we need to move fast on the safety deposit box. If there's anything valuable. My phone chimes again. A text from an unknown number. Your mother knew what he was. She left something for you. Back of the box. Don't let him find it first. Aunt Margaret, I breathe. She must have been with Mom when. We need to go, Sarah interrupts. Now. Before he figures out we're on to him. I stand gathering my purse. What about Emily? I'll pick her up, Uncle Robert offers. Take her to our house until this blows over. As we rush to the elevator, another text arrives from Tom. I tried to protect you from this. Remember that. The threat in those words chills me. But underneath the fear, something else burns. Rage, pure and clarifying. He stole from my mother. Tried to steal her last gift to me. Used our daughter as leverage. Sarah, I say as we reach her car, forget playing defense. I want everything. The house, the accounts, his reputation. Everything. She smiles grimly. Now that's what I wanted to hear. The safety deposit box lies open before me, empty except for a single envelope. Mom's jewelry, generations of family history gone. The bank manager shifts uncomfortably behind me. Mr. Mitchell accessed the box an hour ago, she explains. He had the proper documentation. Forged documentation, Sarah corrects sharply. She's already on her phone, alerting authorities. My hands shake as I open the envelope. Inside, a handwritten note from my mother. My dearest, if you're reading this, Tom got here first. But remember, I always taught you to keep your real treasures closer to home. Love, Mom. My phone buzzes. Emily's text makes my blood freeze. Dad's at the house. He's acting strange. Says we need to talk. Sarah grabs my arm. Don't. We'll call the police. He's with my daughter. I'm already moving. Call them, but I'm going. The drive home is a blur. I find them in Tom's study. Emily perched nervously on the leather sofa. Tom standing by the window. Still in his office clothes but somehow disheveled, undone. Family meeting? I ask, keeping my voice steady. He turns and I barely recognize him. His usual polished facade has cracked, revealing something desperate underneath. You've been busy today. So have you. How much did Mom's jewelry fetch? Emily's sharp intake of breath tells me she didn't know. Dad, you didn't. I did what I had to do. He moves to his desk, opens a drawer. To protect this family. By stealing? Gambling away our savings? Having affairs? Affairs. Emily stands. What affairs? Tom slams the drawer shut. Enough. I had a plan. Everything was under control until you started interfering. Control. I laugh and it sounds foreign even to me. Is that what you call forging my signature? Emptying our daughter's college fund. Emily makes a small wounded sound. My college fund? I was going to replace it, Tom insists. The Peterson merger was a fraud, I finish. Like everything else about you. He moves suddenly and something glints in his hand. Mom's favorite pearl necklace. One piece left. Thought, maybe we could start over. I'll get help. Counseling. Whatever you want. The pearls catch the light, and I remember Mom wearing them at my wedding, her eyes full of concern she tried to hide. She knew even then, didn't she? Whatever I want. I step closer. I want the last 23 years back. I want my mother to have died knowing her grandson's education was secure. I want. Mom. Emily's voice cuts through my rage. He's crying. And he is. Tom Mitchell, master of manipulation, stands before us with tears streaming down his face. For a moment I almost weaken. Then I see his other hand moving toward his pocket. Emily, I say carefully, go to Uncle Robert's house. Now. But. Now. She hesitates, then runs. Tom doesn't try to stop her. You know what's in my pocket? He asks quietly. Plane ticket? Fake passport. He pulls out his phone. One button. One call to my friends at the SEC. They'd love to know about Uncle Robert's creative accounting from the 90s. Aunt Margaret's tax issues. The family's not as clean as you think. The bottom drops out of my world. You'd destroy them too? I'm already destroyed. His smile is terrible. Might as well make it a family affair. My phone buzzes, Sarah, probably with the police. But it's too late. The damage is done. What do you want? A head start. 24 hours. You keep the house, what's left of the accounts. I keep the evidence against your family. He holds out the pearls. And you keep these. As a reminder. The pearls feel heavy in my palm. Not just jewelry now, but the weight of an impossible choice. Save my family or serve justice. Mom's voice echoes in my head. Keep your real treasures closer to home. I look at Tom, this stranger I spent half my life with, and make my decision. 24 hours, I say. Then I burn your world down. He nods once and walks past me. The front door clicks shut with devastating finality. I sink into his chair, pearls clutched in my fist, wondering if revenge is worth the price of becoming him. 23 hours and 47 minutes after Tom walked out, I find Mom's old recipe box in the back of the kitchen cabinet. Inside, wrapped in yellowed newspaper, lies a small red USB drive. My hands shake as I plug it into my laptop. Folders appear, dozens of them meticulously labeled with dates going back 5 years. Financial records, email screenshots, photos of Tom with various women, bank transfers, gambling receipts. My mother, the quiet gardener who never touched a computer, had been building a case against my husband for years. My phone rings. Saracen. Vanessa, we found him. Private airfield outside the city. Flight plan filed for Buenos Aires. 13 minutes left of his head start. And the SEC evidence against my family? Bluff. We checked, there's nothing. He played you. The recipe box feels heavy in my hands. How fast can you get to the airfield? Already on my way. Police too. I grab my keys, the USB drive secure in my pocket. Tell them to wait. I need 5 minutes with him first. The private terminal is small, lit by fluorescent lights that make everything look sickly. Tom stands at the counter, arguing with the clerk. He's wearing the same suit from yesterday, but somehow he's aged a decade. Problems with your flight? I ask. He spins, face twisting. You're early. Mom always said punctuality was a virtue. I hold up the USB drive, along with keeping good records. The color drains from his face. What is that? Everything. Mom knew what you were doing. Every transaction, every affair, every lie. I step closer. She was protecting me all along. The jewelry in the safety deposit box? A trap. She knew you'd go for it first. He lunges for the drive. I sidestep easily. He's not as quick as he used to be. It's over, Tom. SEC agents are outside. Police too. You promised 24 hours. His voice cracks. You're just like me, breaking promises when it's convenient. No. I set Mom's recipe box on the counter. I'm like my mother. Patient, thorough, and done with your games. He laughs, a hollow sound. What do you want? Money. I can get more. I want you to know what it feels like. To realize everything you built was a lie. That someone you trusted was watching, waiting, collecting evidence of every mistake. His face hardens. You really think you can survive without me? You're nothing but a housewife with what? A daughter you gambled away the future of? A mother who outsmarted you? A family who actually loves me? I open the recipe box. Look inside. He hesitates, then peers in. Among the recipe cards lies a single sheet of paper, Mom's last bank statement. The one showing her real account, with enough zeros to make his eyes widen. She left everything to me, I say quietly, the day before she died. Almost like she knew what was coming. You bitch. He grabs for the box, but freezes at the sound of doors opening behind us. Time's up, I say as Saracen enters with 2 FBI agents. Oh, and Tom? The pearls were fake. Mom sold the real ones years ago, to pay for Emily's secret trust fund. They lead him away, his protests echoing through the terminal. Sarah squeezes my shoulder. You okay? I look down at the recipe box, generations of family wisdom, love disguised as instructions for pot roast and apple pie. Mom's final gift wasn't the money or the evidence. It was the reminder that real strength comes from protecting what matters, not destroying what hurts you. I'm better than okay, I say, closing the box gently. I'm free. Outside, the sun rises over the airfield. Somewhere across town, Emily is safe with Uncle Robert and Aunt Margaret, probably making breakfast and planning her future. A future secured by a grandmother who saw everything and said nothing, until exactly the right moment. Mom always did have perfect timing. The The garden blooms exactly as Mom planned it. Late autumn roses climb the trellis, their deep red petals catching the morning light. I kneel in the soft earth, transplanting the seedlings she started in her greenhouse, her last project, now mine to finish. Emily appears beside me, 2 steaming mugs in hand. The prosecutor called. Dad took the plea deal. I accept the coffee, breathing in its warmth. How do you feel about that? Honestly. She settles onto the garden bench. Relieved. No trial means no more secrets coming out. No more pretending. The morning paper lies folded on the bench. Tom's guilty plea relegated to a small column on page 6. The mighty falling quietly without fanfare. Uncle Robert says the restitution payments will start next month. Emily continues. Not that we need them. No, I agree, thinking of Mom's hidden accounts, the careful planning that ensured our security. But it's not about the money. It's about consequences, she finishes. The wisdom in her voice makes my chest ache. She's grown so much these past few months. I brush dirt from my hands and join her on the bench. I found something in Mom's study last night. I think you should see it. From my pocket, I pull out a small envelope. Inside, a photograph. Emily at 5 years old, perched on Mom's lap while they plant marigolds. Behind them, partially hidden by the greenhouse door, Tom stands watching, his expression a mix of confusion and something like fear. She knew even then, Emily says softly. Didn't she? She knew a lot of things. I touched the photograph gently, including how to play the long game. A car pulls into the driveway. Emily's new boyfriend Michael, right on time for Sunday brunch. He emerges carrying a folder of tax documents, research for Uncle Robert's case against Tom's former business partners. Emily stands brushing off her jeans. Speaking of long games, Michael found something interesting in Dad's old company records. Want to hear about it over breakfast? I watch her walk toward him, confident and purposeful. She has her grandmother's steel beneath her gentle exterior. A quiet strength that doesn't need to announce itself. The morning mail sits unopened on the kitchen counter. On top, a letter from the prison where Tom awaits sentencing. I don't need to read it to know what it contains. More explanations, more justifications, more attempts to rewrite our history. I feed it into the garden shredder, letting the pieces scatter across Mom's flower beds as mulch. She would appreciate the symbolism, turning poison into fertilizer, decay into growth. Inside, Emily and Michael spread papers across the breakfast table while Aunt Margaret pours coffee. Uncle Robert peers at financial statements through his reading glasses, making notes in the margins. Look at this, Michael says as I enter, pointing to a highlighted section. The pattern goes back further than we thought. There are others involved, bigger players. I should feel triumph, knowing we've uncovered more evidence, more ways to ensure justice. Instead, I feel something quieter. A peaceful certainty that Mom would approve of this moment. Not because of the revenge or justice, but because her kitchen is full of family working together, protecting what matters. The recipe box sits on the windowsill above the sink, catching morning light. Inside, between cards for pot roast and apple pie, lie the seeds of my mother's legacy. Not just the evidence that brought down Tom, but the wisdom to know when to fight and when to grow. Emily laughs at something Michael says, the sound bright and unguarded. Aunt Margaret shares a knowing look with Uncle Robert. The garden outside continues its slow, steady blooming. I think of Tom in his prison cell, surrounded by concrete and steel, and realize that true revenge isn't about destruction at all. It's about flourishing despite those who tried to clip your roots. Mom knew that too. She always did have the best gardening advice.
I was sitting in the doctor's office, tapping my foot against the cold linoleum floor, waiting for the results of what I thought was just a routine checkup. The air was thick with that sterile antiseptic smell that always made me feel slightly on edge. The door swung open and Dr. Patel walked in, her expression warm but serious. "Lila," she said, settling into her chair. "I have some news that might come as a surprise." I braced myself, suddenly aware of the tightness in my chest. "Okay, hit me with it." "You're pregnant." The words hung in the air, echoing in my mind like a bell tolling in the distance. Pregnant. I was pregnant. I felt a rush of emotions, joy, fear, confusion, all crashing into each other like waves in a storm. I'd always wanted to be a mother, but Caleb and I had talked about waiting a few more years. I could already hear his voice, cool and dismissive, echoing in my head. I thanked Dr. Patel, my mind spinning as I left the office. The drive home was a blur, my hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. I kept glancing at my reflection in the rearview mirror, searching for some sign of change, some clue that my life had just shifted on its axis. When I walked into our apartment, Caleb was sprawled on the couch, his laptop balanced on his knees. He looked up, his eyes flickering with the briefest hint of curiosity before settling back into their usual indifference. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk." "Can it wait?" he asked, not bothering to look up this time. "I'm in the middle of something." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "No, it can't wait," he sighed, closing the laptop with a pointed click. "All right, what's up?" "I'm pregnant." For a moment there was silence. Then a slow, creeping smile spread across his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Wow, that's unexpected." "Unexpected," I echoed, feeling a knot of frustration tighten in my chest. "Is that all you have to say?" He shrugged, leaning back into the couch. "I mean, we talked about this, Lila. We agreed it wasn't the right time." "I know," I replied, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and vulnerability. "But life doesn't always go according to plan." Caleb stood up, running a hand through his hair, his expression unreadable. "This changes everything, you know. We'll have to rethink our plans, maybe even put some things on hold." I watched him, feeling the first pangs of isolation creeping in. This was supposed to be a moment of shared excitement, a step forward in our lives together. Instead, it felt like I was standing on the edge of a chasm, and Caleb was already turning away. "Do you even want this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, and that pause spoke louder than any words could. "I just need some time to think." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Yeah, okay." As Caleb disappeared into the bedroom, I sank onto the couch, staring at the blank television screen. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, but one thing was clear: I was in this alone, at least for now. Later that night, as I lay in bed, listening to Caleb's steady breathing beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. A crack had appeared in the foundation of our marriage, and I had no idea how to fix it. I closed my eyes, trying to find some comfort in the darkness, but all I could see was the uncertain future stretching out before me. I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for the life growing inside me. Caleb would have to come around eventually, right? But as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but wonder, what if he didn't? What if this was just the beginning of something much bigger, something I wasn't prepared for? Questions swirled in my mind, unresolved and persistent, as I slipped into a restless sleep, leaving me with a sense of unease that I couldn't quite shake. The morning after my conversation with Caleb, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, scrutinizing the faint lines around my eyes. I felt older, somehow, as if the weight of the news had etched itself into my skin overnight. I needed to tell Eleanor, Caleb's mother. She was the kind of woman who liked to know everything about her family, preferably before anyone else did. I called her that afternoon, my stomach fluttering with nerves. Eleanor picked up on the second ring, her voice crisp and expectant. "Lila, dear, what a surprise. To what do I owe this pleasure?" "Hi, Eleanor. I have some news I thought you'd want to hear directly from me." "Oh." Her tone was polite but edged with curiosity, like a cat that had just caught sight of a mouse. "I'm pregnant." There was a pause, long enough for me to imagine her expression, eyebrows raised, lips pursed in that familiar way she had when she was trying to mask her true feelings. "Well, that's certainly unexpected," she finally said, echoing Caleb's sentiments from the night before. "Have you and Caleb discussed how this will impact his career?" His career. Of course, it always came back to that. "We're working through it," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Good. It's important to stay focused on what matters." A baby is a big responsibility, Lila, and I hope you're prepared for that. I am, I said, trying not to let her words sting. We both are. We hung up soon after, the conversation leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. I felt more alone than ever, caught between Caleb's indifference and Eleanor's thinly veiled criticism. I needed to clear my head, so I decided to meet Zoe for coffee. Zoe greeted me with a hug that was warm and reassuring. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, pulling back to study my face. I managed a weak smile. I think I'm living with one. We sat down and I filled her in on everything. Caleb's reaction, Eleanor's cold reception. Zoe listened intently, her eyes narrowing with every word. That's just like them, she said, shaking her head. Always so focused on themselves. What about you, Lila? How are you holding up? I shrugged, staring into my coffee. I'm trying to be optimistic, but it's hard when it feels like I'm the only one who cares. Zoe reached across the table, giving my hand a squeeze. You're not alone. I'm here and I'll help you through this. Her words were a balm, soothing the raw edges of my anxiety. But as we talked, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was brewing beneath the surface, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. A few days later, I decided to cut back on my hours at work. I hoped it would give me more time to focus on my health and maybe, just maybe, ease some of the tension at home. When I told Caleb, he looked at me like I'd suggested we sell the house and move to Mars. You're cutting back? He asked, his voice laced with disbelief. Isn't that a bit premature? I thought it might help, I said, trying to keep my tone light. Less stress for both of us. He shook his head, a disapproving frown creasing his forehead. It just seems like you're giving up, Lila. We need to be strong right now. The irony of his words was not lost on me. I'm trying to be strong, I replied, biting back the urge to say more. I just thought. Maybe think a little less, he interrupted, his tone sharp. We've got enough on our plates. I nodded, swallowing my retort. It was easier than starting another argument, especially when I knew it would lead nowhere. But his words lingered, gnawing at my resolve. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. Caleb had been distracted lately, more so than usual. And then there was Eleanor's cryptic comment about his career. It was like I was piecing together a puzzle, but half the pieces were missing. The next morning, as Caleb left for work, I noticed something odd. His phone, usually glued to his side, was left charging on the kitchen counter. It was a small thing, but it struck me as unusual. I picked it up, hesitating for a moment. Then, driven by a mix of curiosity and something deeper, I unlocked it. What I found was unexpected. A message from an unknown number, signed with a single initial, M. Looking forward to tonight. Can't wait to see you. M. My heart raced as I stared at the screen, the implications sinking in. This was more than just a crack in the foundation. It was a chasm, threatening to swallow everything I thought I knew. I put the phone down, my hands trembling. This was the twist I hadn't seen coming, a revelation that turned my world upside down. I had to know the truth, and I had to know it now. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, my mind replaying the message from Caleb's phone over and over. The initial shock had worn off, leaving behind a simmering anger that I couldn't quite shake. I knew I had to act, but I wasn't sure how. That's when I decided to call Ian, my detective friend. Ian picked up on the first ring, his voice steady and reassuring. Lila, what's up? I need your help, I said, trying to keep my voice from trembling. I think Caleb's cheating on me. There was a pause, then Ian's voice came back, calm and professional. Tell me everything. I recounted the late nights, the secretive behavior, and finally the message. Ian listened without interrupting, letting me get it all out. Do you want me to look into it? He asked once I'd finished. Yes, I replied, my resolve hardening with each word. I need to know the truth. All right, I'll see what I can find. After hanging up, I felt a small sense of relief. Ian was good at what he did, and if there was something to uncover, he'd find it. But as the day wore on, my relief turned to anxiety. What if Caleb found out? What if I was wrong? That evening, Caleb came home later than usual, his tie askew and his eyes tired. He barely glanced at me as he walked past, heading straight for the shower. I watched him go, my heart heavy with unanswered questions. When he finally emerged, I decided to test the waters. "Long day?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," he replied, rubbing his neck. "Lots of meetings. Anything interesting?" I pressed, searching his face for any hint of deception. "Not really," he said, his eyes flicking away from mine. "Just the usual." I nodded, biting back the urge to confront him. Instead, I turned back to my book, pretending to read while my mind raced with possibilities. The next few days passed in a tense blur. Caleb's behavior didn't change. If anything, he seemed more distant, more preoccupied. I kept waiting for Ian to call, each ring of the phone sending my heart into overdrive. Finally, the call came. Ian's voice was low, almost apologetic. "Lila, I found something." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "He's been seeing someone," Ian said, his words careful and measured. "Her name's Marissa Lane. They've been meeting at a hotel downtown." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Marissa. The initial from the message. It was all real, and it was worse than I'd imagined. "Thank you, Ian," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you want me to keep digging?" he asked, his tone gentle. "No," I replied, my mind made up. "I've heard enough." After hanging up, I sat in silence, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me. I needed to confront Caleb, but the thought of it filled me with dread. How could he do this to us? To me? That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling as Caleb slept beside me. My mind was a whirlwind of anger and betrayal, but beneath it all was a deeper, more unsettling question. What was I going to do now? The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity. I needed to talk to Zoe. She'd always been my rock, and I knew she'd help me figure out my next steps. We met at a small cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu. Zoe listened as I recounted Ian's findings, her expression growing darker with each word. "That bastard," she said, her voice low and fierce. "I knew he was trouble." "What do he do, Zoe?" I asked, feeling more lost than ever. "You confront him," she replied, her eyes blazing with determination. "You deserve answers, Lila." I nodded, taking comfort in her unwavering support. But as I left the cafe, a new thought occurred to me. What if confronting Caleb wasn't enough? What if I needed to do more to protect myself and my future? The idea of revenge flickered in the back of my mind, a dangerous temptation that I couldn't quite ignore. I'd always believed in justice, in doing what was right. But this situation was testing everything I thought I knew. As I walked home, I realized that my understanding of justice was evolving. It wasn't just about getting answers or confronting Caleb. It was about reclaiming my life, my happiness, and my sense of self. And if that meant taking drastic measures, then so be it. With each step, I felt a new resolve building within me. Caleb had made his choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let him control my life any longer. I spent the next few days in a fog, my mind replaying the conversation with Ian and the images it conjured of Caleb and Marissa together. The betrayal was a living thing, gnawing at my insides and making it hard to focus on anything else. I knew I had to confront Caleb, but the thought filled me with dread. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Caleb walked in, his face a mask of practiced normalcy. I watched him from the corner of my eye, my heart pounding in my chest. It was time. "Caleb," I said, setting the knife down with a deliberate clatter. "We need to talk." He paused, a hint of irritation flashing across his face. "Can it wait? I've had a long day." "No, it can't," I replied, my voice firm. "I know about Marissa." Color drained from his face, leaving him looking pale and exposed. For a moment, he said nothing, just stared at me as if I'd slapped him. "I don't know what you're talking about," he finally said, his voice tight. "Don't lie to me, Caleb," I said, crossing my arms over my chest. "I've seen the messages. I know about the hotel." He opened his mouth, then closed it again, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "It's not what you think," he said at last, but the words rang hollow. "Then tell me what it is," I challenged, my anger bubbling to the surface. He hesitated, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. "It's complicated," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Complicated?" I echoed, my heart aching with the weight of his betrayal. "You're cheating on me, Caleb. There's nothing complicated about that." He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." I shook my head, disbelief coursing through me. "That's not good enough." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by a hard, defensive edge. "We can work through this," he said, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "We can fix it." I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the kitchen walls. "Fix it? How do you fix something like this, Caleb?" He took a step toward me, his hands outstretched. "I'll end it with Marissa. I promise." I studied him, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe him, to cling to the hope that we could somehow salvage our marriage. But another part of me, the part that had grown stronger with each new revelation, knew that it wasn't enough. "I need time," I said, stepping back. "Time to think." He nodded, relief washing over his face. "Of course. Take all the time you need." As he left the room, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a flicker of something else. Empowerment. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was in control of my own life. The next day, I met with Zoe again, needing her perspective to help me sort through the chaos. We sat on a park bench, the autumn leaves swirling around us like confetti. "So, what's the plan?" Zoe asked, her eyes sharp and focused. "I don't know," I admitted, staring at the ground. "Part of me wants to fight for this, for us. But another part of me is just done." Zoe nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You have to do what's right for you, Lila. Not for him, not for anyone else." "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "But it's not that simple." She reached over, squeezing my hand. "You're stronger than you think. Whatever you decide, I'll be here." As we sat there, a new thought began to take shape in my mind. Maybe this wasn't just about Caleb's betrayal. Maybe it was about something bigger. About reclaiming my life, my happiness, and my sense of self-worth. The idea of revenge still lingered, but it was shifting, evolving into something else. Maybe the best revenge wasn't about hurting Caleb or Marissa. Maybe it was about finding my own path, one that didn't involve them. With that realization, I felt a sense of clarity, a new determination to take control of my future. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let Caleb or anyone else dictate my life any longer. Conference was being held at a sleek hotel on the outskirts of town, its glass facade glinting in the afternoon sun. As I approached, my heart pounded with a mix of dread and determination. I had to see it for myself, to confront Caleb and Marissa in their deceit. I slipped through the lobby, my footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. The elevator ride to the conference floor felt interminable, each ding marking a step closer to a confrontation I wasn't sure I was ready for. When the doors finally opened, I hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady myself. I could hear the murmur of voices and the clinking of glasses from the reception area. I moved forward, scanning the room for Caleb. And then I saw them. Caleb and Marissa stood together, their heads bent close in conversation. They were laughing, oblivious to the world around them. My heart twisted painfully at the sight, the reality of their betrayal hitting me like a physical blow. I walked over, my steps purposeful, my resolve hardening with each stride. Caleb looked up as I approached, his smile freezing on his face. Marissa turned, her expression shifting from surprise to something more calculating. "Lila," Caleb said, his voice tinged with a nervous edge. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Marissa's eyes flickered with something like amusement. "I didn't realize you'd be joining us, Lila." "I wasn't invited," I said, my gaze fixed on Caleb. "But I thought I'd drop by and see what you've been up to." Caleb shifted uncomfortably, his hands slipping into his pockets. "Lila, this isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I asked, my voice rising. "Because it looks like you're here with her, not at a conference." Marissa smirked, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. "Caleb, maybe we should tell her the truth." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What truth?" Caleb hesitated, his eyes darting to Marissa before returning to me. "I was going to tell you, Lila. Tell me what?" I demanded, my patience wearing thin. Marissa stepped forward, her expression triumphant. "Caleb and I are planning to be together. After the baby is born, he's leaving you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, my breath catching in my throat. "Is that true, Caleb?" He looked away, his silence more damning than any words could have been. I felt a surge of anger, my vision blurring with unshed tears. "You coward," I spat, my voice trembling with rage. "You couldn't even tell me yourself." Caleb opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Save it. I've heard enough." I turned on my heel, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. As I left the room, I could feel their eyes on me, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. I needed to get out of there, to clear my head. I found myself outside, the cool air a balm against my heated skin. I walked aimlessly, my thoughts racing. I'd known Caleb was unfaithful, but hearing him confirm it, hearing their plans for the future, was a blow I hadn't anticipated. I stopped by a park bench, sinking down onto the worn wood. My mind was a jumble of anger, betrayal, and something else, relief. In a way, their admission had freed me. I no longer had to pretend, to hope for something that was never going to happen. But as I sat there, another thought occurred to me. What if this wasn't just about Caleb and Marissa? What if there was more at stake? The idea of revenge flickered in the back of my mind, a dangerous temptation that I couldn't quite ignore. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed Zoe's number. She picked up almost immediately, her voice a lifeline in the chaos. "Lila, what's wrong?" "I need your help," I said, my voice steady despite the tumult inside. "I need to figure out how to protect myself." Zoe was silent for a moment, then her voice came back, firm and reassuring. "Whatever you need, I'm here." As I hung up, I felt a new resolve building within me. Caleb and Marissa had made their choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't let them dictate my life any longer. It was time to take control, to fight back, and to reclaim what was rightfully mine. With that thought in mind, I stood up, my path clear before me. Whatever happened next, I was ready. The days after the conference were a blur of raw emotions and sleepless nights. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, the ground crumbling beneath my feet. The betrayal, the lies, it was all too much. I was barely holding it together, the weight of it all pressing down on me. One morning I woke up feeling off, a dull ache in my abdomen that I couldn't ignore. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just stress. But as the day wore on, the pain intensified, sharp and unrelenting. I knew something was wrong. I called Zoe in a panic, my voice trembling as I explained what was happening. She insisted on taking me to the hospital, her concern palpable over the phone. Within minutes, she was at my door, her face a mask of worry. The hospital, the sterile white walls, and the hum of machinery did little to calm my nerves. The doctor's expression was grave as he delivered the news. I was losing the baby. The words hit me like a sledgehammer, knocking the breath from my lungs. I felt a numbness spread through me, a cold detachment that belied the turmoil inside. Zoe held my hand, her eyes filled with unshed tears, but I couldn't cry. I couldn't feel anything at all. As I lay there, the reality of my situation crashed over me in waves. I had lost the baby, and with it, the last thread of hope that had been holding me together. Caleb's betrayal, the end of our marriage, it all seemed insurmountable now. When I finally returned home, the apartment felt different, empty and foreign. I wandered through the rooms, touching the familiar objects that now seemed to belong to someone else. I found myself in the nursery, the room we'd never gotten around to decorating. It was a stark reminder of everything I'd lost. Caleb came home later that evening, his face drawn and weary. I could see the guilt etched into his features, but I couldn't bring myself to care. We sat across from each other, the silence heavy and oppressive. "I heard about the baby," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, unable to find the words. "I'm sorry, Lila. I never meant for any of this to happen." His apology rang hollow, a meaningless gesture that did nothing to ease the pain. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man I'd once loved, now a stranger. "I don't know what to say, Caleb," I replied, my voice flat. "It's too late for sorry." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away, the distance between us insurmountable. "I'm leaving," I said, the decision crystallizing in my mind. "I can't do this anymore." His eyes widened, panic flickering across his face. "Lila, wait. We can work through this." "We can." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm. "We can't. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." As I spoke, I felt a strange sense of calm, a clarity that had been absent for so long. I was done fighting for something that was never going to work. It was time to let go, to find my own path. The next few days were a whirlwind of packing and goodbyes. Zoe was a constant presence, her support unwavering as I prepared to leave the life I'd known. As I packed the last of my things, I found a letter tucked into one of Caleb's drawers. It was from Marissa, detailing plans to exploit Eleanor's finances to fund their new life together. The revelation was a final, bitter blow, confirming everything I'd feared about Caleb's intentions. I knew I had to tell Eleanor, to warn her before it was too late. I met Eleanor at a quiet cafe, the air thick with unspoken tension. She looked at me with a mixture of skepticism and concern, her eyes searching mine for answers. "What's this about, Lila?" she asked, her voice sharp. I slid the letter across the table, watching as her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "Caleb and Marissa are planning to use your assets to fund their life together," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She stared at the letter, her hands trembling. "I can't believe this," she murmured, her voice breaking. "My own son." "I'm sorry, Eleanor," I said, reaching out to touch her hand. "I thought you should know." As we sat there, a new understanding passed between us, a bond forged in shared betrayal. I realized then that my ideas of revenge had shifted. It wasn't about getting even, it was about protecting those who still mattered. As I left the cafe, I felt a sense of closure. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I was ready to face it. I had lost so much, but I had also found something invaluable, myself. And that was a start. Confrontation with Eleanor had left me drained, but it had also given me a sense of purpose. I knew what I had to do next. The truth about Caleb and Marissa's plans was out in the open, and it was time to face them both head-on. I decided to meet Caleb at our apartment, the place that had once been a home and now felt like a battleground. I waited for him to return, the silence of the room pressing in on me as I rehearsed what I would say. My heart was a drumbeat of anxiety and determination. When Caleb finally walked through the door, his expression was a mixture of surprise and apprehension. He must have sensed that something was different, that I was different. "Lila," he said, setting his briefcase down. "What's going on?" I stood up, meeting his gaze with a steadiness I hadn't felt in months. "We need to talk." He nodded, a wary look in his eyes. "All right." I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out in a rush. I know about your plan with Marissa. To use Eleanor's money. His face blanched, the color draining away like water from a sieve. Save it, I interrupted, my voice sharp. I've already told Eleanor. His eyes widened, panic flickering across his features. You did what? You heard me, I said, crossing my arms. I told her everything. Caleb ran a hand through his hair, his movements agitated. Lila, you don't understand. No, Caleb. You don't understand, I snapped, my voice rising. You've been lying and manipulating everyone around you. And for what? To run off with Marissa. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off again. I've lost everything because of you. The baby, our marriage, my trust. And now you want to destroy your mother's life too. Caleb's shoulders slumped, a defeated look settling over him. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Yet here we are, I said, my voice softer now but no less firm. It's over, Caleb. You've lost everything. He looked at me, really looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved. But it was too late for regrets, too late for apologies. What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice hollow. I want you to leave, I said, the words coming out with a finality that surprised even me. I want you to leave and never come back. He nodded, a resigned acceptance in his eyes. All right. As he turned to go, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a newfound sense of freedom. This was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. But just as he reached the door, it swung open to reveal Marissa, her expression one of smug satisfaction. I see you've finally grown a backbone, Lila, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I bristled at her words, my anger flaring anew. And I see you're still as deluded as ever, Marissa. She laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Oh, please. Caleb was never yours to keep. Maybe not, I replied, taking a step forward, my gaze steady. But he's not yours either. Not anymore. Marissa's smile faltered, a flash of uncertainty crossing her face. What do you mean? I mean that it's over, I said, my voice ringing with conviction. You've both lost. Caleb looked between us, his face a mask of confusion and regret. Marissa, maybe we should. No, she snapped, her eyes flashing. We're not done here. Yes, we are, I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. You can't manipulate your way out of this one, Marissa. It's time to face the consequences. As the words left my mouth, I saw the realization dawn on her face, the understanding that her plans had crumbled. She turned to Caleb, her expression pleading. Caleb, we can still. But he shook his head, a weary resignation in his eyes. No, Marissa. It's over. With that, he walked past her, out the door, leaving her standing there, alone and defeated. I watched him go, a sense of closure settling over me. Marissa looked at me, her bravado gone, replaced by a hollow vulnerability. You think you've won, Lila? I shook my head, a small smile playing on my lips. This was never about winning. It was about doing what's right. As she left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Confrontation had been painful but necessary. I had faced my greatest challenge and come through stronger for it. Standing there in the quiet aftermath, I understood that justice wasn't about revenge. It was about finding peace, about reclaiming my life and moving forward. And for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to do just that. The days following the confrontation were a whirlwind of change and reflection. I moved into a small apartment, a cozy space that felt like a fresh start. It was a blank canvas, waiting for me to fill it with new memories and new beginnings. I spent my mornings at the school, finding comfort in the familiar rhythm of my work. Helping others navigate their challenges gave me a sense of purpose, a reminder that life continued to move forward no matter how heavy the past. Eleanor reached out to me a few days later. We met at a small cafe, the same one where I'd shown her the letter. This time, the atmosphere was different, less tense, more hopeful. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," Eleanor began, her voice steady but soft. "About Caleb and Marissa." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. "I've decided to cut Caleb off financially," she said, her eyes meeting mine with a resolute determination. "He needs to learn that actions have consequences." I felt a surge of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Eleanor. I know that wasn't easy." She sighed, a hint of sadness in her smile. "It's the right thing to do." "I see that now." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping our coffee. Then Eleanor reached across the table, her hand covering mine. "I'm sorry, Lila. For everything. I should have seen what was happening sooner." Her apology was unexpected, and it touched me deeply. "We all make mistakes," I said, squeezing her hand. "The important thing is what we do next." She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm proud of you, Lila. You've shown incredible strength." As we parted ways, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Eleanor's support meant more than I'd realized, and it marked a new chapter in our relationship, one built on mutual respect and understanding. Back at my apartment, I found Zoe waiting for me, a bottle of wine in hand. "Thought you could use a drink," she said with a grin. I laughed, grateful for her unwavering friendship. "You know me too well." We settled onto the couch, the wine flowing and our conversation easy and light. Zoe's presence was a balm, her laughter infectious and comforting. "So, what's next for you?" she asked, her eyes curious and supportive. I leaned back, considering her question. "I don't know," I admitted. "But for the first time, I'm okay with that. I'm just going to take it one day at a time." Zoe nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Sounds like a plan." As the evening wore on, I found myself reflecting on the journey I'd been through. The betrayal, the loss, the confrontation, it had all been painful, but it had also led me to this moment. A moment where I felt stronger, more self-assured, and ready to embrace whatever came next. The resolution wasn't perfect. There were still loose ends and unanswered questions. Caleb and Marissa were out of my life, but their shadows lingered, reminders of the past that had shaped me. Yet I knew that I was no longer defined by them. I was free to carve my own path, to find my own happiness. As I lay in bed that night, the city lights casting a gentle glow through the window, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had faced my fears, confronted the people who had hurt me, and emerged on the other side stronger for it. And as I drifted off to sleep, a lingering thought crossed my mind, a subtle twist to the resolution. What if Caleb and Marissa's downfall was just the beginning? What if their actions had set off a chain of events that would ripple through their lives, forcing them to confront their own demons? The thought was both unsettling and oddly satisfying, a reminder that justice and karma had their own way of unfolding. Whatever happened next, I was ready to face it with courage and resilience. In the end, my journey had been about more than revenge or justice. It had been about finding myself, about learning to value my own needs and desires. And as I closed my eyes, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, possibility, and the promise of a brighter future.